All right. What are we looking at here? Um, there we go. Hey guys, welcome to the show. My name's Rodrigo. You're watching twitch.tv/El Pikachon. I'm trying to get situated here. My name's Rodrigo. This is my sidekick, Smokey the Smoke Detector. And yeah, kind of trying to make up a stream because I was out last Wednesday, which is the day that I usually stream. Just gonna take it easy and do some raids at least for a little while. So yeah, hang out, chill out. It'll be good times. Good times, good times. Let me do the YouTube thing here. There we go. All right, let's see what people are rating. Nothing. I just gotta wait a little bit. There we go. Let's see what this Phalanx is up to. Get some water. Oh, that is super loud.
Surprise stream on my way home from work.
Oh, there you go. Thank you for the subscription, St. JW. Really appreciate it. Yeah, I hope you're not driving and watching a stream on your way home. Hopefully you're like on a bus or something. Let's see. Yeah, I figured I would make up some content because I wasn't able to do the stream on Wednesday. So I thought this is a good opportunity to play some Pokemans, just chill, hang out, see who jumps onto the stream. Good times, good times. I was just about to get on the bus. Okay, that's good. Yeah, a big part of the reason why I don't end up watching a lot of other people's streams or listen to podcasts is because I don't have a commute like that. And also not my jobs don't really allow me to. It's like I have exclusively in my life worked jobs where I'm supposed to where I need to hear what's happening. So it makes it difficult to do stuff like that. Dynamax. Yeah, I saw this thing that I just didn't know before. Apparently, you can lure Pokemon to come hang out with you when you camp in Sword and Shield. This game's been out for like 2 years, and I'd never heard that before, and I never realized it because I didn't use. I use the camp if I needed to, but because Pokemon centers are so common, they're all over the place, and once you get the ability to fly back to a Pokemon center, like there's kind of no reason to camp anymore. Like as you're playing through the main game, so I've never tried it, but I don't know. Maybe we'll set up camp today and see if we can lure a Pokemon over. I don't know. It's definitely not as involved or not as active as doing raids, but I've never done it before, so maybe we'll try it. I don't know. Oof. Yeah, a lot of people like failings. I kind of don't. I don't like it as much as other people do. It's okay. I just kind of not super interested in it. But it's a cute little Pokemon. Now we won't catch it. Just catch and release. Oh, it's my Caparaja following me around. Uh-oh. So yeah, it's good times. There's some new Lancer content just dropped. A new source book is out now for Lancer. So I thought, oh, maybe I'll make this a Lancer stream, and then I thought, well, maybe I'll spare you guys all the Lancer talk, or maybe we'll do it later. But I'm definitely excited about it. Bug Electric. Let's do this. So maybe we'll talk some Lancer later. I don't know. So Joe says I have a 2 hour commute, so lots of podcasts and audiobooks. I've listened to most of Critical Hit on buses. I believe that. That's a lot of people have commutes like that. I also get a lot of I think I've talked about this before, but I get messages every once in a while of people being like, I fell asleep listening to Critical Hit and I had a really weird nightmare. And I was like, well, I mean, I could have told you that. Critical Hit is a weird show, and it gets kind of weird sometimes. So, major spoilers or Critical Hit is not responsible for any weird nightmares you might have if you fall asleep listening to the show. Weird but awesome. Well, thank you. Yes. Yeah, let's open with Ancient Power so we can get the boost. It's Entei. Wasn't there a movie where like Entei is like some little girl's dad? I don't know. I didn't see a lot of the Pokemon movies and stuff. Chomp. I never get the bonus off of um no, I forgot off of ancient power. And I wonder if it has something to do with the like opposing Pokemon shield. I've never thought about that, but maybe. Like I know it's supposed to be random, but I never for some reason I never get it, so I'm like, well, maybe it's because it's like the shield prevents the enemy Pokemon from having things happen, but it also blocks the effects of like max moves, so it prevents like rain or it prevents like whatever the max move does. Yeah. So I never get this, so I wonder if the shield has something to do with it. I took the kids to the first three. They were okay. I've seen a lot worse. Oh, the first Pokemon films, yeah. Yeah, I want to say I've seen the first one at least way back in the day, but I just really haven't kept up with any of the Pokemon anime. I've actually started watching Pokemon Journeys. Is it Journeys? Yeah, the one where like they're kind of it's like Ash and his little boyfriend Go are like going around learning about Pokemon. So it's like it's interesting. It's kind of like a re. I mean, it's weird because Ash and Pikachu already get along, and like there's kind of this um like it really appears like everything that Ash has been through maybe has happened. Like when he was like it's like all of the adventures that he's gone on have already happened and now he's like a little Pokemon researcher, but also he's not any older, so it's weird. So it's hard to tell exactly how it fits into the rest of the Pokemon anime, but it's cute. It's fun because it's a Pokemon show that kind of takes the entire history and all of the Pokemon games into account. So it's like today they're going to the Galar region, and tomorrow they're going to the Sinnoh region or whatever. So it actually, tells its whatever its little story is, um, while incorporating 25 years of Pokemon. So that's fun at least. Team Rocket is in it, but they're not in every episode. So if Team Rocket's a selling point, I guess there's that too. It's okay. It's a cute show. I'm not like binging it or anything, but every once in a while, if I've got a spare like couple minutes or 22 minutes or whatever, I'll sit down and watch it. I should probably stand someplace safer since this area is like full of random wild Pokemon. A Saturday stream. That's right. Don't get used to it. Oh, hang on. Let me see if I can. Does this look like we're in a Christian band? Maybe I need to face like this direction. There you go. It's like a 90s album cover. I'll take a picture of it. Oh, no, that's my bike. There we go. Yeah, so today I didn't have to go to work, so that's why we're doing a Saturday stream. Normally I work on Saturdays, so it's not really a possibility. But I wasn't able to do the stream on Wednesday, so I figured, hey, might as well spend some of Saturday morning, doing my thing. Doing my thing online. And my thing being playing Pokemon and talking about stuff. Not responding, boo. Oh, Pokemon client. Still not any good after all these years. Yeah, yeah, it's good times. That'll be good times. Let's see. Turtle. So yeah, what are you guys up to? Just taking the bus, hanging out, going out and about with your lives. That's good. I've definitely I'm definitely going out a little bit more nowadays, but I'm still like, oh, I need to worry about COVID. So I don't know. All the mask mandates are being lifted, but I'm just like, no, I'm just gonna wear a mask when I go out, and I do, and nobody's bothered me about it so far. Oh, it's that guy. See, that's cute. If you get the DLC, sometimes you see the DLC characters in raids. Although I didn't realize because that's not. It's like this is Pokemon Sword and that's the Pokemon Shield NPC because they're different depending. So it's interesting that you actually get both. I thought maybe you only got one. Let's see. Horse Point Mine says I stayed with some friends last night and we went to a farmer's market this morning and I biked home. It was quite nice. That does sound nice. Yeah, that's nice. St. JW says it's 1928, almost home. Food and chill, to be honest. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Wait, 1928? Like the time? I was like 7:30 p.m. Wow, this is actually like a. We got two NPCs, and this is actually a pretty good setup for this one. Sometimes you get NPCs that are like actually actively terrible, but these guys should be okay. Okay, yeah, yep. Um, let's hit it with a power gem and see what it does. Uh, yeah, I actually just the other day caught this star U. It's 11:30 a.m. here. Haha. So yeah, what else? You know, it's just going to work, doing major spoiler stuff. It's been pretty chill. Nothing major to report. Pavlov is here, but he's sleeping. The cat is also here, but she's sleeping. So it's good that they've learned to sleep through me like shouting at a microphone, cause now it doesn't bother them at all. Ooh, a bottle cap. Nice. Bottle cap. Bottle cap. All right. Let's see. Let's try a camp and see if we can lure a Pokemon over. It hasn't worked so far, but hey, it could work. Okay, so there are all my Pokemon in the camp. Guess we'll start by making some curry. I'll just start cooking. Start a cooking. What do I have? Instant. Let's try some instant noodles. Some pecha berries. I don't know what that's gonna make. I don't know if I already have it in my curry decks. I'm not very methodical about curry. Like the game kind of wants you to be, but I'm not. Fan, 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 fan. Stir, 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 stir. All right. Mm-mm-mm. Come and get it. Sweet instant noodle curry. Does that sound good? I don't know if that sounds good. Well, they like it, I guess. Okay. So I've been reading up on camping in Sword and Shield, and apparently there's like yet another hidden stat called like sociability, and that's what attracts other Pokemon to your camp. But I'm like, oh, that, yep, just give me the ball. There you go. Eh. And the way that you raise Pokemon sociability is by like playing with them and making curry. Oh, this guy got upset. Speak to two Pokemon. Oh, they're curious about each other. Oh, they like each other. Pokemon does love its hidden stats. It's very annoying, honestly. Um, people are talking a lot about Legends Arceus and the fact that there don't appear to be too many hidden stats in that one. It does away with like IVs and EVs, for example. Um, you gonna kick it back? There you go. Let's see if I can talk to two Pokemon at once again. Nope. We'll just do one. Yeah, people get real like I don't know. Like I have learned about a lot of the hidden stats that at least matter for the stuff that I want to do. But yeah, hidden stats are kind of annoying, and it's something that seems to be hope like in other games, hidden stats tend to go away. um, eventually because the audience demands it, right? But Pokemon is kind of the opposite. Like people want it's like people that are into Pokemon, like training and breeding and maybe even competitive, want those hidden stats because it's like a barrier to entry. So it's like, oh, people who want to play Pokemon can't unless they figure out these stats. So it kind of continues to create this environment where like only people in the know can do it. But again, it's a huge barrier to entry. So in a very real way, it makes it very difficult for people to get into Pokemon, for people to get into competitive Pokemon. It's like as a kid or as anybody, right? Nothing tells you that. Like you have to like unless you're like very online, you have to suss out um how all this stuff works and it's pretty much impossible. Like okay, go play. It just makes it like really difficult. This is why like rental teams are a thing. Like it's a lot easier to just have somebody else come up with a team and have them do all the work of like again EV training and breeding and all that stuff and then do it that way because otherwise like it sucks to spend that much time doing something like and then you need to tweak it, you know? It's like okay, so I raised like I want Caparaj on my team and I gave him like big hit point EVs and big like physical damage or like physical attack EVs. So it's like, and then I play it and I'm like, oh, I should have like actually done this slightly different. Now I have to jump through all of these hoops to be able to get that to happen just so I can play competitive, right? If you're playing Magic the Gathering, you could just show up with a deck. I mean, you have to know about like what cards are banned and stuff. But that's a lot less than like figuring out how each Pokemon needs to tick with all of these like hidden values. So yeah, I was not thrilled when I was started to look into this and saw that like there's another hidden value called sociability and that's how you lure other Pokemon to your camp. So it's like, okay, well, it's like the way you raise sociability is by like making curry and by playing with them. Clever Lang says this is true. That is true. Some say it's hard to find online. It is. It is. I mean, some YouTubers have made their living from teaching people this stuff, but you have to find those YouTubers, right? Like this isn't stuff that just happens. You have to like figure it all out. It's why I didn't figure it out until now, right? It's like I've actually been playing Pokemon games for a while. I've been playing Pokemon games since Pokemon came out, and only during Shield or like Sword and Shield did I finally sit down to figure out what all this nonsense was. I kind of got interested in when I was playing Sun and Moon, but it was just a lot, and it's hard and it's really arcane, and like you have no guarantee that it's actually going to help you to figure this all out. So yeah, it's not great. But anyway, yeah. So that's what I'm doing now is I'm trying to raise the sociability of these Pokemon and see if I can lure some new Pokemon to the camp. Just to do it because I've never done it before, but I don't know. It seems to take a long time, and I think part of something that factors in is like how long your camp is up. So that's another thing is that like you kind of a lot of the time have to keep your camp up for like a boring amount of time just to be able to lure something in. Plenty of potato. Spicy boiled egg. Tropical curry. Spicy tropical curry. This is the one we just made. So that's good. At least it wasn't something that I had already made, so it builds up the curry decks. I think at 50 um I get a new ball to play with my Pokemon. So, yeah, let's try and make some more curry. It's also impossible to tell if like these Pokemon's sociability is maxed out. I think it could be, but it's like okay, well, it's impossible to tell. So, throw in some berries, throw in a bag of bones, I guess. These Pokemon will eat anything. Stir, 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 stir. Stir, 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 but not too fast. Making soup for Pokemon. Doody 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 doo doo doo. Yeah, I pretty much never get anything above Milcery class, or unless Copper class might be the like highest up I ever go. Bone curry. I guess that's a thing. Yummers. Yeah, Milcery class is usually about where I hang out. I think it's easier to get a higher class if you use rarer ingredients, but it's hard to find rarer ingredients sometimes. All right, go play. Mmm, good times. See, like I'm hanging out here and I'm like, oh, I'm playing with these Pokemon and blah blah blah, and it's cute. It's like, but I'm already kind of bored of it. So it's like there's so much about this game that is so like boring, that like repetitive and tedious, and that's like the barrier to entry to a lot of stuff. Um, I don't know. I don't love it, and like I may never actually um manage to lure another Pokemon to my camp because I just kind of lose patience, and I'm like, yeah, playing with my Pokemon is fun, but also because I'm trying to increase individual Pokemon sociability, right? It's like I want to have a group with higher sociability. I need to keep using the same Pokemon and build up their sociability. So I don't even get to swap out Pokemon. All right, let's go do some raids. Okay. This is my trick for like getting the game to refresh. I tell it that I'm looking for a league card or for somebody to swap cards with me, and then I just let it roll because then that creates this like active search. Ooh. So, Galarian Wheezing's hidden ability, I forget what it's called, but it creates misty terrain. Um, and I like the other day, a couple days ago, I was like, oh man, a Wheezing that has that hidden ability. I'm gonna catch it. So yeah, went through the raid, caught it, and then when I went to put it in a box, I realized that there were two other Wheezing in there. And I'm like, oh, let me check these Wheezing. And sure enough, both of those Wheezing had the hidden ability. So I keep doing that. I keep catching Wheezing with the hidden ability, and every time I'm like, oh, I don't have one of those. Let me catch it. And, sure enough, I already have one, or two, or three now. So I'm not going to catch this one, even if it has the hidden ability, because I don't need four of them. I definitely don't need four. Do not need a full party of Wheezing. Clever Lang says games that are tedious are tough to play. Yeah, so you can play through the story of Pokemon with pretty much minimum tedium, right? Just playing through, catching Pokemon, especially now that, catching Pokemon gives you XP, and basically the XP share is always on. It's a lot easier to play through the game, be the right level for like whatever. Wait, is this Misty Terrain Wheezing? Doesn't look like it. Nope, I guess it isn't. So we'll just do a regular. No, this move. There we go. But yeah, so breeding shinies, catching shinies, um, just breeding Pokemon in general. Like if you want to breed them for competitive or whatever, it can be pretty tedious. People have it down to a science, but and I'm not gonna say that I am not into it because I am. I like putting something on and then getting on the Pokebike and like spinning around and around until something hatches. It's like that's fine. But also there's a reason why I have to put something else on. It's like very boring, or it can be. Yeah, I don't know. It's like it's a tough relationship with Pokemon, right? So people I think are really starting to articulate that, or they have for a while. So again, when you look at Legends Arceus, there isn't even any breeding. And again, they've done away with EVs and IVs. So people are like, oh, is this going to be like the future of Pokemon? And I don't think we're going to see that stuff in Scarlet and Violet because, again, Scarlet and Violet were probably developed in parallel with Legends Arceus. So um, they were probably being developed around the same time. So you're not gonna see changes from Arceus or you're not gonna see a lot of mechanics from Arceus implemented into Scarlet and Violet, but you might on the next one, because then they'll have taken those lessons and we'll see what they want with them. But I don't know if they decided to keep it the same. I guess that's fine. If they decide to change it, that would probably be fine too. I wouldn't cry if they were like, oh, we fundamentally changed how Pokemon breeding works. I'd be like, okay, unless somehow they made it more tedious, which I guess is a possibility. I wouldn't care. It'd be fine. They've already made shiny hunting like a lot easier, especially in Legends Arceus. Like you just find random shinies around. Once you finish the game and you get especially if you get the shiny charm, like just kicking around doing random stuff will like get you shiny. Which I know some people don't like. Some people are into the difficulty of it. It used to be that having a shiny was a real badge of honor. That you either spent thousands of hours breeding Pokemon until a shiny popped out, or you spent thousands of hours hunting until a shiny popped out. And it's like now that's not the case, but it used to be. What keeps attacking Wheezing with ground type moves? Man, I'm yawning a lot. It's probably because it's so early. It's like noon. Who's even up at this hour on a Saturday? Okay. God, why? It's like, did this person just disconnect? I think they might have disconnected, and then this thing is now just like doing the top move, and the top move is a ground type move, so they're just not hitting it. Sinjiro says home and on PC rather than phone can actually see what's going on now. Oh, that's good. The Goog says that is an absurd entity. Which one? The Galarian Wheezing that we're fighting, or this guy? Because this guy's pretty weird too. That's not my Pokemon. I have the. I'm using this metal elephant. Goose says I just hopped in and the wheezing is a lot. Oh yeah. Yeah, Galarian wheezing is pretty weird. I can't believe we're probably gonna run. We're gonna like. We're gonna fail this raid because this character keeps using Stomping Tantrum, which Weezing's immune to. It's like I'm literally. Me and the NPC are the only ones actually dealing damage to this thing. Yep, Iron Head. Let's go. Yeah, it's like the other person's using Metronome, and you know, it's terrible because not only do they keep landing on moves that don't deal damage anyway, also the like that Dynamax shield protects Weezing from like protects the Dynamax Pokemon from status moves, so it does nothing. Like, and now that guy's gone. God, we're gonna like we are gonna lose this raid. Yep, we lost. Wow, that's obnoxious. The Goog says, like, it's a wheezing. Okay, two coughing smashed together. Gen 1 evolution. This makes sense. But it also has a smokestack hats, and it's enormous, and it's glowing pink, and there's a black hole of some sort. I'm old. I feel old. No, that's Dynamax. That's the gimmick from Sword and Shield. It basically turns your Pokemon into kaiju. Let's what do I want to do? Yeah, let's do another raid. Actually, I don't know. Maybe we should switch gears. Let me see. Let me get my other controller, and maybe we'll play some Ghostwire Tokyo. You guys know about that game? It's about ghosts in Tokyo. Let me see here. You've heard about it. You haven't seen it. Yep. Give me a moment. We'll switch over to that just to see. It might I might need a little bit of time just to like tweak the volume and everything because I haven't had it for streaming yet. But give me a sec. I'll BRB. Let me unplug this. There we go. How's that? Can you guys hear me now? Okay, well, that'll teach me to just like randomly switch gears to something I haven't tried out midstream. So obviously, uh, I need to troubleshoot that to some degree. Good to know. Let's just go back to Pokemon. Yep, I tried to do something different midstream and it didn't work, and I need to sit down and figure out why. Like, I know what happened. I just need to figure out how to change it and how to keep that from becoming the default. Let's do Pokemons. Yep, good times, good times. Always great to have a chunk of this stream where I'm just like, all right, that is not what I meant to press. Let's see what people are rating. The static is where I hide all my secrets. Well, yeah, I mean, the static is where I hide all my secrets and also all my non-secrets because nobody can hear me anyway. Blip. Harvestry says sometimes a thing doesn't work out. It happens. Small beans though. Yeah, I mean it's fine. It's good to know. I think I really just need to get like a dedicated controller for my PC games. I could also just like play it with a mouse and keyboard, but I'm a console guy. I don't like playing with a mouse and keyboard if I don't have to. We'll let it figure it out for a bit. Harvester says Rodrigo channels the thing that shatters the sky and the static. Yes. Sinjidolu says, so you were actually telling us what happened after the end of the Void Saga and the hardware decided we weren't ready? Oh, yeah, sure. Uh, Orspawn Mind says, I grew up on PC, but I have fully converted to a gamepad life. Yeah, I will break out my, like, ooh, I will break out my, like, arcade stick to play fighting games, but other than that, I basically play on gamepad. Oh, Pokemon. Your connectivity issues are so much fun. All the fun. 100% fun. Welcome to this edition of Rodrigo Complains About Pokemon. Today we're talking about connecting to raids. There we go. Ice beats. I guess I could keep a steel type out, right? Steel beats ice. Let's see. Harvester says mouse and keyboard only games feel like they don't respect me. Yeah. Balui says I have switched over from console to PC but prefer gamepad. Yeah, me too. I still want to see if I can find a game that controls with my MIDI keyboard. I'm sure you can find it. Saint JW says gamepad for action stuff, driving games, etc. Yeah. Um, what do I want to say? Like, I got into playing Overwatch when it first came out, but I was playing on console, so I was using a gamepad. And everybody's like, "Oh man, you got to use the mouse and keyboard." And I think you get like it's a lot easier to play shooters with a mouse and keyboard because you just, I mean, it's not as hard as gamepad basically. But I was like completely turned off by the prospect of like having to use a mouse and keyboard. I quit playing Overwatch eventually, not for that reason, but yeah, it was definitely kind of annoying to like one of the main reasons why I quit Overwatch is because it was like very clear that they only balanced around competitive, and that obviously means that like forget the consoles, right? The consoles don't even count. Like don't worry about it. So, yeah, part of the reason why I stopped playing is I was like, well, anytime like anytime there's a balance patch, it actually makes playing on console even harder, and I'm already bad at this game. And also, I don't love the community because things can get pretty toxic. So I was eventually like, meh, just gonna play something else. But Overwatch 2's coming out soon. I don't think I'm gonna get into it. Um, Definitely, like when I first started playing Overwatch, I was like, this is cool, but I wish there was just like PvE. And they've had like PvE events since then, and I like those just fine. They're fine, but they're also very limited, right? So it's like it looks like Overwatch 2 is going to have a significant like PvE component, but I'm like it's kind of too little, too late. I'm just like not that interested. Wow, that hit a lot of times. Unfortunately, it did no damage because of the way that max raids work. Um, but yeah, so new Overwatch is gonna have more PVE, and I'm like, if the original Overwatch had had that, I would have been all over it. Oh, it's a Zen mode. Should I try to catch this guy? Should I catch another Zen mode Darmanitan? I already have one, and a shiny one too. Oh wait, do I have one? Maybe I don't. Well, let's Dynamax and Steel Surge. I guess it's a fire type now, so it'll probably resist this. Horsepoint Mine says some of the best experiences in Overwatch were making up custom games in private service, playing human tetherball with a hamster and Doomfist, for instance. Lagnus says, "Hello there, Mr. L. Pikachon. Hey, Lagnus, good to see you. Glad all of you guys could make it on the weekend."
Hi, Guy.
Hey, RL Richie, subscribe with a tier one. Thanks, I appreciate it. How you doing? Just hanging out here doing max raids, right? Oh, here, let me give a shout out. Yep. So RL Richie has been starting to get through Pokemon Shield, right? Um, and I was there on the day that they discovered max raids. So that was fun. I wasn't able to get in on a max raid with them, but it was still fun to watch. Max raids have a lot of weird rules to them that you kind of have to like master. Lagnus says, "I am the opposite. Not interested in Overwatch 2 because the PVE is the first one is so bad, according to me. I mean, that's fine. Like I like the PVE in the first one, but it was very clearly like a bunch of like beta tests, right? Like it it felt unfinished. It was weirdly unpolished, and everything about the game is geared towards no Santo box. Everything in the game is geared towards PvP, so like some abilities just kind of don't work in PvE. They just kind of didn't work at all. Oh, Alex Athenium. Hello. How's it going? We're just playing Pokemon. We're doing some max raids. Just chilling. Like max raids are actually like because it's all turn based. It's like a pretty good way to have some action on the screen, but also just take it easy. Except of course when you get paired up with like a really bad group and you lose the raid because everybody's spamming ground type attacks against a Pokemon with Levitate. I'm doing okay. I'm Alex. Oh, it's Alex. It's that Alex. Oh, that's cool. Hey, Alex. I just shouted out your channel. Oh, yeah. Let's see if we can get in on this Scyther. That Alex. Oh, I didn't mean to. I mean, that's fine. Steel types pretty much work for anything. Sinja W says, I feel like Max Raid is an NPC name waiting to happen. Yeah, Max Raid is actually a pretty good name for an NPC. Um, RL says, we've got you on TV so we can both watch while we do nerdy card stuff. That's fun. Harvester says, massive multiplayer online typically turns me off. Yeah, people tend to behave badly, and I have a bad time. Yeah, it's just, especially on console, like Overwatch console was just the Wild West. Like, you just never knew what you were going to get. I feel like if you played competitive in on PC, then it's like, okay, you're actually going to be working with a bunch of tryhards, right? Which is fine because at least they're trying. Um, I always had like all of these, you go in and like on console, like even in competitive, like people are just trying stuff out. Like it's casual, nobody cares. So if you want to care, if you actually want to play the game and kind of experience that like more geared Overwatch experience, it was like really annoying. I actually I talked to one of my nephews about it, and they were like, "Yeah, my friends and I play Overwatch," and I'm like, "Oh yeah," and I started talking to him about it, and I figured out that when they play Overwatch, they'll go in because Overwatch allows you to change your character anytime you're in the base, including after you die. Like they're like, "Yeah, we'll go in." And then it'll be like they'll go in. It'll be like three of them. One of them's playing, and then when that one dies, they hand the controller to the other one, to another one, and that person picks a new hero or basically whatever they want to play. So it's like it's like you're in this game of 6v6 and one at least one of the people that you're playing with is actually three kids that are just like swapping the controller back and forth. So it's like I mean, maybe that is the true Overwatch experience. I mean, that kind of was my Overwatch experience, right? It's like, especially when you get on headset and people are there and everybody's like, there's some guy who's like, yeah, I've never played Sombra before, but, whatever, it's cool. And I'm like, all right. And then, like, you hear somebody else is like, well, like I put like 50 hours into Diva, and it sounds like a 3-year-old child, right? And it's like, okay, all right, well, this is my team, I guess. Let's all do our best. But stuff like that isn't why I quit. I quit because people are like actually toxic, like just terrible stuff. Like you just hear all kinds of like obnoxious racist stuff. On top of not having a lot of fun because the game is difficult and people aren't trying very hard. Let's see. Um, Lagnus says, does the new Lancer book have new mechs in it? Yes, it does. It's got, well, so it's got two mechs that have been known to the community because they've been playtesting them for a while. But it's got two new mechs um, for their SSC mechs, which is my favorite company, so that's nice. And then it also has two alternate frames, one for the Black Witch and one for the Minotaur. So it's interesting as far as stats. As far as like playable, crunchy content, it's okay. It's got a lot of stuff, but more importantly, the fluff like details like a major setting aspect, which we can get into later. I'm not gonna. Sometimes I feel like I just go on this Lancer tangent, and people are like, "Uh huh, okay, great." Let's see. Our only experience with the big raid Pokemon is people coming in and slaying. What you're doing looks like an actual challenge. Yeah, so if you get a bunch of people on a 5-star raid, it actually can be challenging. I'm just gonna release this Scyther. Um, I don't know if you guys saw. Not you guys probably showed up later, but we actually lost a raid, which is something that can happen if people aren't paying too much attention. Balui says the last MMO game I played was the Star Wars Old Republic. I've heard good things about that one. I have a friend who like plays that a lot. Lagna says, "How are you enjoying Numenera? I'm still not quite grokking the system. I like it. So far, I like it a fair bit. Um, I think my problems with Numenera were actually a. I don't know if I want to mess with that guy. Um, my problems with Luminera or with Numenera were like for an earlier version that was like a lot more fighty and a lot more like D&D. This edition of Numenera is a lot more freeform. It's like maybe a little bit too freeform, um, but it's okay. Like there are times when I'm like, I wish this game instead of like this game a lot of the time is like, hey, you can do what you want. It might be a little bit more difficult, but by all means, try it. And I'm like, sometimes I wish this game was like, no, no, you can't do that. Like, I need some amount of structure. And it's a combination of like the game not having a certain amount of structure and also Dr. Will, like himself being a very permissive game master. Sometimes I just need to be told no, and neither the game nor the game master are doing that for me sometimes. But other than that, it's a lot of fun. Let's see. Last, blah blah blah. Sinjado says my WoW guild is full of nice folk. My wife is the guild leader. That's great. It's great when you can find a community like that. Harvester says that sounds very chaotic for everybody else on the team. Yeah, no, it was it was hardcore. Alex says, Rob and I were taught Numenera at Gen Con once. The person teaching it was not very good, so we didn't come back to it. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. There's definitely things that I would like tweak about it, but that's the kind of game master I am anyway. I will like change a lot of things in the system if I don't like it, or if I just think that, something is going to hit certain themes better. Let's see. Balui says, last time I played a PvP game, the racial slurs were rampant. Absolutely, it's terrible. Like I heard a lot of anti-Semitic stuff on Overwatch, and I'm like, jeez, it's just terrible, just so obnoxious. Like one member is Pokemon trainer in Smash. I do not know what the threat to this is. Yeah, but yeah, basically, yeah, it is like, yeah, it's like Pokemon Trainer from Smash. I get what you're saying. Yeah, three kids in a trench coat. Rich RL Richie says I'm jealous about this one. Souther's my favorite, and yep, we lost a raid. We did. Yep. If you don't pay attention, you can actually lose the raid. You guys haven't experienced that because you guys had been hosting like 3-star raids, and everybody else who jumped in was like hardcore. So it would be like the turn goes to the first person and they just like obliterate the Pokemon, right? But if you're doing 5-star raids, especially um, Gigantamax raids, right? Or yeah. So there's a difference between Dynamax Pokemon and Gigantamax Pokemon. Gigantamax raids you can actually lose. Lagna says, I was not so grabbed by the fluff myself in Lancer, but the mech system is fun. The mech system is a lot of fun, and I personally really like the fluff. So it's kind of a win-win for me. St. JW says, Dr. Brad is really cool. I'm on the Yellow Light game on Crit Hit Rerun at the moment, and his style is so different to yours. It is like night and day, right? Like, my way of running games, it's like, make sure that at all times, like, the players are like rolling at like a 45-degree angle, right? It's like I think I put a lot of pressure on on characters and on stuff. And it's like Dr. Will is like a little bit more relaxed and definitely more permissive. Like I said, there's like times when I'm just like, no, you can't do that. Um, and he really kind of doesn't. I mean, he does a little bit, but in general, he tends to be much more permissive than I am. R.L. Richie says learning Numenera that day was kind of like learning to play blitzball. I love the concept of Numenera though. Cool setting. It is a very cool setting. Yeah. Harvester says I think the last MMO I played was Champions 3 summers ago before starting a short-lived pandemic-ending job. Ha 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 ha. Oh, that sounds rough. It was kind of cool, but I had a tough time without people I knew and the ability to run content together. Yeah, no, I get that. Lagna says, have I only read the fluff like 1.5 times and it was a bit confusing? Maybe if I dug deeper. Um, I think definitely the way to get into the lore of Lancer is to get into the lore for the companies, right? Like the major mech manufacturers. Each of them has like some really wacky stuff going on. So if you're like, I like Harrison Armory mechs, let me learn about Harrison Armory. Oh no, they're like basically they're everything that's bad about things. Like Harrison Armory are like what the setting calls anthro-chauvinists, and which is like basically Earth first, like or us first kind of people. Like they're basically fascists and like horrible. Like they're also a super company, a company that is so large that they're basically can offer citizenship and stuff. Like their citizens are also employees. Um, so it's like, oh wow, this is terrible. And then when you see how Harrison Armory interacts with everyone else, it's like that's one way to get into it, right? And same thing with SSC, definitely with Horus. Horus is like a super weird, like hacker collective. So I don't know, it's kind of interesting. Let's see. Horsepawn Mine says, as someone currently listening to the Fend of Winter's arc, I'd say your style is not so much rolling at a 45-degree angle as pulling a cartoon rope and opening a trapdoor underneath their feet. There is that, too. I do reserve the right to do that. Harvester says, I do enjoy a GMing style of, no, I don't think that will work, but there's something here or something there. What do others think could help? Yeah. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm constantly telling the players no, but there's definitely a lot of like um, yeah, just sometimes you just have to tell the players no, and that's fine. And sometimes you're like, okay, well, I imagine that something like this is gonna happen, and then the players surprise you, and they surprise you in like weird ways, like. It's like, oh, this is a way worse idea than I thought they were gonna have. This is fantastic. This is gonna like this is gonna give me so much to work with just because the players made a decision that's gonna move the plot forward, but is also like so bad. Let's see. Let's let's end in Hat Pikachu. Let's see. What's the alien status in Lancer? They got aliens. Mm, the short answer is no. Um, the medium answer is they have these kind of equivalent to AI things called NHPs, which stands for non-human person. So they basically the NHPs are basically um, trans-dimensional math demons that are like held together by like a physical structure. Um, and also because they are so powerful and so intelligent that they like immediately start to spin out of like human levels of comprehension, so they become very dangerous. So they're shackled, which keeps them from like basically it keeps their framework from going post-human, or beyond the human framework. um, and then there were other aliens, or there actually technically still are. One of the major inciting incidents of the setting, like this isn't like the history of the setting, so it's not something that incites stuff now or like in the current time of the setting. Um, basically, humans discover aliens and immediately like destroy their planet. Like they're like, oh, these alien like sentient aliens, and they're like, oh, these aliens are hostile and destroy them, and that causes people back on Earth to just freaking lose it. Right? It's like this idea that we made first contact and completely screwed it up. It actually causes like a huge regime change. So the short answer is no. You can't play those aliens because there's so few of them left, and they only really exist within a corner of the setting. But you can't start the game with an NHP friend, so you get to start the game with like your very own math demon if you want. Let's see. Harvester says, "Ooh, I actually had a friend ask me for my notes on my interpretation of the Feywild, and I let them know that a lot of it was inspired by significantly borrowed from Rodrigo's presentation of it. That's good. Diplomatize the horses, always a terrible idea. Thank you, Rob." Horsepawn Mind says, "I think the Void Saga world always felt bigger than the party, even at high levels, and some of that comes from being honest and saying, nah, that's just going to happen." Yeah, the party was always just kind of, it's like, yeah, what they're doing is very important, but there was always other stuff going on, right? And like sometimes you would see glimpses of it and be like, oh, like there's people that are working against them, or people that are working towards the same goal but differently, or people that are like just screwing things up because they're working tangentially to the party, right? um, Harvester says there are different layers of creativity. Creative solutions slash problem solving doesn't have to mean that the first thing players come up with or blurt out will work flawlessly. Refinement is good and part of the creative process. Yeah, I agree. One second. Let's see. Lagnus says, I like rules. I like working within good rules. If those are strict or not, I lost it. If those are strict or not does not matter, but I like to see the edge I can't go over and do something there. Yeah, no, I get that. Gambling warning commercials actually have a good line for my approach to crunchy games. Know your limit, play within it. Okay, yeah, no, that is a good way of looking at it. Lagnus says if some of those rules are house rules, that's fine as long as they're rules. I like crunchy games with a lot of extra stuff and different stuff. Pathfinder First Edition, with most of the extra books, is my minimum baseline for me calling it crunchy. That's pretty crunchy. Harvester says, I love the coming up next season on Critical Hit glimpses that the PCs got during the Void Saga. like Orem's wonky face step, leaving him all discombobulated. Fantastically seated foreshadowing. Well, thank you. I think that is one thing that I managed to do pretty well with the Void Saga is to foreshadow future events. I think my cat's making a weird noise. And that's largely because I mean I have a lot of freedom with critical hit. Like during the Void Saga, Steven pretty much let me do whatever I wanted. So I was able to sort of like as a creator be like, okay, well I can seed this here, and next season or like 2 seasons from now, I can actually have this pay off. Senju W just realized been here for an hour or so and not said hi to Smokey the smoke detector. Oh yeah, this is my sidekick. Oh here, this is my sidekick Smokey the smoke detector. Um, he's he's a strong silent type. Unless he needs his battery changed, then he makes a lot of noise. Horsepoint Mind says the Baltinox manservant makes reference to a star that nobody is supposed to know about, which is a foreshadow that I had forgotten about. Yeah, if you go back, like pretty early on, I had ideas for stuff I wanted to do, and it's like some of them actually don't pan out, but it doesn't matter because NPCs are going to talk about random things. So it's like if they talk about something that never happens or that we never see, it's a little annoying, but it becomes a throwaway line, right? But man, when I do get to do that thing, it like blows everybody's minds because they didn't realize that the lore went so deep, right? Um, Harvester says overarching themes and conflicts. Oh, oh, thanks for the. Somebody gave me a. I forgot to put in a code, so I just got a random card from somebody. Let's see. Overarching themes and conflicts, hooks planted early so that the players are wondering about it for a bit, maybe forget, then get confirmed with a hook later when it's in their face is so good. Yes, I agree. However, the critical hit crew is not one to hold a cryptic bit of knowledge in their heads for very long, and that's partially what's satisfying about Critical Hit, the podcast, is that sometimes I will like seed something, and the players do not remember it, right? But someone in the audience does, um, and then of course people are like yelling at them, and it's like, well, it's okay if they don't remember everything. It's actually not a big deal. Fortunately, we have the audience that actually catches details like that. I do like I have like a different play group, um, and the people in it. Oh, he's dreaming. The people in my other play group are like that. They're actually like, hey, I'm gonna pay attention to things, and it's gonna be great. So it's like I will like reference something, and they will like pull out their notes and be like, yeah, that reminds me of this and this. Are those two things related? And I'll be like, they are related. And it's like, oh, cool. Um, so different groups kind of do things differently. There's groups that like explore a lot. There's groups that don't explore. They just like show up and cause things to happen while they're there and then move on. And there are groups that are like, wait, 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 wait. I need to learn literally everything there is to know about this temple or this person's room or like whatever. Let's see. Harvester says, I did like how Adriana kept up with so many details. It was a great contrast to the others. Yeah, definitely. Harvester says, notes, speculation, corkboard, and yarn. Yeah, some players are like that. Horsepawn Mine says, I'm a huge Critical Hit fan, but I'm also always the person reminding people to be careful about comparing their home games to podcast games because they're just going to be different. Yeah, absolutely. Like my home game is different from Critical Hit in a lot of ways, right? Just not being recorded changes the way that we do things, or rather, being recorded changes the way that we do things, right? Because that's like the less common one, or at least it used to be. Maybe now it's just as common. Because everybody and their mom has a real play podcast nowadays. Uh, so, but yeah, definitely, like don't expect your game master to run a game like I do, right? Game mastering is a very personal thing, and people do it very differently. And just because, as you guys have heard, right, we've heard Sam do a show or do a game. We've heard Dr. Will do a game. You've heard Steven do a game. Rob, Brian. Everybody does things differently, and that doesn't mean that it's one's better or worse. You might like one way more than the other, but that doesn't mean that anything is like good or bad. It's just kind of whatever style they're into. Lagnus says, in my last campaign, I did all the connection. Hang on a second. In my last campaign, I did all the connection with foreshadowed stuff. It was published. It was a published adventure, so they did a good job. I'd be like, "We'll meet. We'll meet this here," and blammo, I was there. So I played my rogue as a bit of an investigator to make it fit. That's cool. Um, Horsepoint Mine says, "Oh, for sure," or Harvestry says, "Oh, for sure. I think it can be tough path to walk if you're looking to emulate an actual play show. If you thoughtfully narrow down what actual styles and themes you want to evoke and play up those elements instead of trying to echo the show itself, it's likely to be much smoother." Yeah. So um, one thing that happens is when you're a game master and you've been doing things for a long time, um, you have these techniques, and a lot of techniques have been developed purposefully, right? So um, I don't know, something simple like me saying "what else" to players, right? It's a way to get them to think if they have anything else, or if they have nothing else, to just move on. Um, so it seems simple, but there's a reason why I say that instead of like okay or that's fine or whatever, you know, like because it kind of leaves that door open. However, and this applies to lots of techniques, if you hear somebody do it and you don't know why they do it, implementing that into your game can go sideways. You can actually kind of do it wrong or like get yourself into trouble by emulating something that you see another game master do without knowing why they do it, right? So that's a very basic example. I'm sure you guys can figure out why I say "what else" um, instead of like "okay, fine" or whatever, you know. Um, but yeah, that applies to lots of different techniques. Before actual play was a thing on Twitch and so on, nobody was, "Oh, I need to learn how to GM for a year before I can." Yeah, no. And I've had people say that to me, um, where they're like, "Oh yeah, I've been trying to GM, so I've been like studying and watching stuff, and then I think I'll be ready soon." And I'm like, "You're already ready." It's like you're already ready to run your crappy first game, and you should. Here, actually, hang on a second. Let's talk about that. Okay. So I have a lot of people, or I've had some people come talk to me, and they're like, "Yeah, I really want to be a game master, blah blah blah," and like they're like training for it. It's like, "Yeah, I'm watching YouTube videos and seeing what people say," and it's like, "I think like within a year I'll be ready," and I'm like, "You're already ready, right? You're already ready to run your crappy first game because that's actually how you learn to be a game master. You run games and they're good and bad, and you take the bad stuff and you work on it or you change it or whatever. You take the good stuff and you keep it, or you throw that away too because it was good, but you actually want to do something different with your games. Like, you are already ready to be a game master, right? If you got the book and you've got a handle on the rules, like, just go for it. Just try it, right? Because nothing's going to teach you more than that. And by that, I don't mean go start your, like, again, don't try to be Rodrigo in the Void Saga, right? Don't try to have your first game be a 10-year game with like multiple like moving parts and stuff like that. Don't do that. Start small. Start with a one shot or a couple or something that's like a couple of sessions, um, and because it's like the first time you guys heard me game master, it was the Void Saga, but I had actually been doing it for years prior to that, right? So I came in with a lot of lessons. I'd actually been running specifically fourth edition for maybe a year, maybe a little bit less. So even in the specific um, game, I already had some amount of expertise. So yeah, don't like the best way to become a game master is to just go do it. Get your friends together, run a game, um, or find some strangers online. That works too. Um, and then yeah, don't expect that you're gonna be, you know, uh, don't expect that you're gonna be equal or even similar to you know Matt Mercer, right? Um, like your own style may be very different from them, and you will find that style. You will find things that make you comfortable, and hopefully your players can find their way into that style as well, and then everybody will just kind of roll with it. Like, my style is weird. Part of the reason why it makes for good radio, part of the reason why the Void Saga is interesting, is because I actually take big swings at the players, and I don't just mean with monsters. There's kind of this implicit thing where I like, or explicit, because I've talked to the players about it, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna play this game, and I need you to trust me. If something happens to your character or something weird goes on, like in the end, your character is going to seem more awesome for it, or you're gonna get something in return, even if that something is just like airtime to do something you want. And then I will turn the players into rats, or like kill them, or just do all this stuff that is like actually kind of what I want to say. It's like kind of intrusive, right? It's like it kind of takes some agency away from the players. And part of the reason why I do that is because I want to surprise them. I do want to kind of hurt them a little bit, just a little bit, so that when they get back on top, it's like that much sweeter, right? So my style is very weird. Don't copy my style directly. It's going to it's gonna be a thing. Find your own style. Your style may be more aggressive than mine, or it might be more passive than mine. It's hard. It's hard to tell until you do it. Let's see. I've missed on a lot of stuff. Uh, Horse One Mind says, yeah, absolutely. Everyone is going to be different, and also like power of the edit surely can't be underestimated. Yeah, our show is edited, right? Number one thing you need to remember: we are not as fast at finding things and coming up with things as you think we are, because you're listening to an edited show. Lagnus says, I jammed my first game just before New Year's 1986. Nice. That's old school. Harvester says, yes, not knowing the why is a huge complication. Yeah, it can be. Let's see. My first game was crappy. Yes. Good. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. You should be okay with that. My first game was also crappy. Harvester says, I did adapt. Talk to me about that. Yep. When a player proposes something they want to do, or they will ask, will X work? I won't outright tell them yes or no, but I find having them explain their reasoning and suspicion is good to refine what they want, but also let their fellow players in on their thinking. That's a very important game master skill to be like, what are you hoping to accomplish by this? Because players will describe their character's actions, and if you just take that at face value, your interpretation of it might be different, right? Like, um, if your player comes face to face with like a tiger, and they're like, I roar very loudly, you might think, oh, well, they're trying to intimidate it, but maybe the player's like, no, I want to make friends with it. So asking the player, what are you doing by doing this, um, will will put you both on the same page, and then you can say yes or no, or tell them a better a better way of going about it, or just be like, okay, you try to do this in your weird way, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Um, R.L. Ritchie says, I always wanted to be Rodrigo and the Void Saga. Well, don't. Um, you should be Rob in the Rob Saga, or whatever you're calling your game. Um, it's good to be influenced. I am influenced by a lot of things. I'm influenced by game masters that I had, and I'm influenced by a lot of media, and so it's okay to be influenced. But you should, yeah. There are times when you're like, there have to be times when you're like, Rodrigo does it this way, but I want to do it this way instead, and you should just do it that way instead. Because even if it doesn't work, like if it doesn't work, you can be like, oh, that's why Rodrigo does it this way, because the other way doesn't really work. Or maybe you'll do it another way and be like, I like this a lot better. Rodrigo's an idiot. What a fool. He should do it this way too. So it's like, whatever works for you works. Let's see. Harvester says, I've actually moved away from recommending one shots for newcomers, actually. My own experience is that trying to run a neatly contained adventure in a single 4 hour session is hard. I mean, that's true. My sweet spot is 2 to 3 3 hour sessions, a short arc that gives players a chance to develop characters, mull over info, but not have to commit to a longer run. Absolutely. Running short games, right? That's what it is. Rather than one shots is run short games, try things out, and then you're not committed to you don't commit to it, right? You can then after a few sessions just be like, okay, well, I learned a lot from it. Let's try something else. Let's do something else. Or you can keep that game going, but I mean, I don't necessarily even recommend that. I know a lot of people like I've ran a lot of one shots or short sessions where people are like, I want to keep playing these characters. Please, oh please, oh please. And I'm like, no, if we want to like sit down and actually start running this game, now we know better, right? Now we have a lot more information. You can run a character that's very similar to this, but it's okay. We can run another game, and that's going to be exciting too. Randus's arm has entered the chat. Yeah, I mean that's a great example of me just like being actually a really transgressive game master, right? Of me like literally just taking chunks of the characters off and being like, okay, you have to deal with this now. But also doing that because I knew that Brian was looking at the like self-forged Paragon path and being like, here's now an opportunity for you to do this. And I told them that. I was like, this is an opportunity for you to do this and have explained in universe why you would remove your own arm. It's like, well, you didn't remove your own arm, somebody else did. But also, if you don't want to do it, you can just have a robot arm and pick a different class and it'll be fine, right? So, yeah. Lagna says the best thing I learned from Matt Mercer is to steal the critters hashtag. Yes, aggressively steal the hashtag critters and then talk about critical hit and confuse everyone. Because we had it first, and we did totally have it first. R.L. Richie says, I admire the big swings thing, and I still have trouble pulling it off. Trust falls are hard. They are. And if you walk up to the ledge and you don't want to do it, dial it back. That's fine too. Um, like Hearthstone Mine says, I'm still salty about this, about the hashtag. Yeah, what are you gonna do? They're a lot more. They're a lot more famouser than we are. Harvester says, I am also salty on Critters as fan base collective. That is not something we need to discuss here. The actual Critical Role fandom, we do not need to get into who they are and what they're doing. The words "your power doesn't work" echo in my mind forever. Yep, that'll do it. Um, Orspawn Mind says Austin Walker is really good at that, getting at the root of what a player slash character intention is, even beyond the original actions. That's good. Uh, Earl Richard says, "Oh, that was past tense. You got my ball rolling like 10 years ago." Oh, okay, good, good, good. Um, One of my players really doesn't like the "talk to me about that" strategy. Almost like being put on the spot is worse than being told no. I've had to adapt a lot more improv and pacing strategies to keep it flowing. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, some players are just not going to respond to your tactics, right? And you just have to figure out something else to do with it. Harvester says Rodrigo should do it this way instead. To Twitter. Uh, oh no, just to clarify, I was also talking about its use as the naming for fans, no other conduct. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Um, yeah, sometimes people are just not going to respond to. They're just not going to respond to what you're trying to do, and that can be very off-putting, right? Especially if like the last 20 times you've tried it, it worked flawlessly. Um, One second. Yeah, sometimes um, it's like I do a lot of games with pre-gens, like right with like pre-generated characters, because that gets the players in real quick. I can like make the characters tie their motivation to what's going to happen in the plot, so that players have like an easy in into things. Um, and yeah, so it's pretty easy. And most of the time, when I hand someone a pre-gen, it's someone I know and someone that I've played with before or have some sort of knowledge of, like we're already pals or whatever. Um, so very often I will hand people characters that I think they will like, and usually I'm right. But there have has been actually only really just one time where I handed someone a pre-gen and they were like, "I don't want to play this. Like, I am not interested in this character. Basically this seems stupid." And I was just like blown away by that, right? Because usually I'm actually pretty good at telling what people are gonna want and what's gonna be interesting to them, and to have somebody be like, "No, I don't want to like I this is not interesting to me. I don't want to do this," was like kind of a blow to my ego, and yeah, just like a surprise. And also because like we were getting ready to do that game, and um and I was like, "Oh, well, now we need to fix it." Right? And as it turned out, we were able to fix it with aesthetics, basically by changing what the character was. We were able to pretty much keep, maybe make a couple tweaks rules wise, but pretty much keep the character mechanically as it was, and just like drastically, I just had to drastically change who the character was and what they looked like, and then that made things a little that made things work. But yeah, I was like, oh my god, like I've never had this where somebody like just doesn't want to play this character, because I would hand like experienced players, I would be like, play this character, and it would be something that was very against type for them, and they would recognize that. They'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'm always like playing like the like the hidey hide sniper." So it's like here's like a frontline fighter, right, or something like that, or like I'm always playing a magic person. So here's a very non-magical character for me to play, or whatever. It's like I always play like a brooding jerk. It's like, well, now you have to play like a nice, friendly person, like stuff like that, and players usually actually respond very well to that when I've done it, because I also try to do it in a way that's going to make it interesting for them. But yeah, like nobody's perfect. Nobody's a perfect game master, and like Even I, with all of my game mastering powers, I'm like frequently thrown off by stuff players do and like kind of upset about it sometimes. And, you just gotta like kind of live and learn. Um, let's see. How do you respond to that firm rejection? Yeah, I just kind of had to be like, okay, like you can't, you can't just be like, well, this is what you're getting, so it's this or nothing, right? With somebody's whole character, right? You just can't. You have to find some way to compromise, and really that's what it is. How do you get around that firm of rejection? You just compromise. Um, Harvester says, yeah, I have a couple of 4E to 5E short adventures I've made and ran, and they use pregens of characters who would otherwise be NPCs in another game with original characters. Each has some tie to the setting and relationships to other characters. Yeah, it just you have to have the right. The point of doing like the point of doing pregens is to like pre-establish those relationships that then lets the players explore them in the game, right? Harvester says speculating quietly about when it happened. Oh, it's like it's not on critical hit. This is something that happened to me as a game master and other stuff. Senjido says not perfect. My illusions are shattered. Yep, that's right. Um, if you, I can further shatter your illusions by like taking this hat off and you seeing how like what an absolute rat's nest my hair is right now. I had like I put on my headphones and I was like, wow, my hair looks terrible because it's just like reaching towards the heavens in a horrifying way. And I had to like I finally like just trying to like move my headset and like work with my hair. I was finally like I just need to put a hat on because this is gonna be terrible. Um, Lagna says if it's a long campaign, I want to make my own. Otherwise, I'm into pregens, grabbing something I haven't played before. Yeah, and that's what I would do, right? I wouldn't. I, I might run a long campaign handing people free gens right off the bat if I have something in mind. If I have something where it's like, okay, like these characters are actually going to die in some way, right? It's like 3 sessions into this like ongoing campaign. These pregens that I've given you are going to die, and then you get to make characters that are like tied to them in some way. Maybe I'd do it then, but I wouldn't just hand people pregens and be like, okay, well, we're gonna be playing this game for 5 years, and you have to play this character. That doesn't seem right. Um, like it says, a big part of RPGs to me is making a PC. Me too. You guys have probably seen pics of silica floating around, right? It's that's how I get into RPGs as character creation. Harvester says, I had a falling out with a friend who I was pitching a one shot to. They had told me about how miserable their ongoing D&D was, and I wanted to set something up for good times. Stylistic issues cropped up though. Yeah, that can happen. Let's see. I was pitching 2 different adventure options. They didn't want pre-gen, so I said, okay, make characters with these resources and use this rolling method or standard array. And they dug their heels in about not being allowed to use point buy, uh, that I was somehow hindering their creativity and was being on fun tyrant. It blindsided me, and we stopped talking for a long time after that fallout. Yeah, that's an example of like that's actually an example of like the player not being experienced enough to know that sometimes that's fun, right? Like sometimes it's fun to not have that control. It actually is. So that sucks. It kind of sounds like you guys have patched it up, but yeah, that's like very clearly them being like, no, I want to play the game this way, and you being like, well, you can't because I'm running this game and I'm gonna run it this way, and that's something that I do. Like when I pitch a game, like I pitch a game to people. I'm not like, hey, do you want to play in my D&D game? Make a character, right? I'm like, okay, here's the game. Like we're gonna play D&D. Like you guys have to be like you guys are have to play someone who like wants to take down a slaver ring, right? Like slavery is like in the setting, like whatever country you guys are from, just recognizes slavery. It's fine. They don't have a problem with it. But you have to play someone who doesn't want to do it. That's going to be sort of the main action of like at least early in the game, right? So that's a pitch. You then can play any character that fits into that framework, and then it's fine, right? So it's like I never give players zero rules, right? I give them at least one rule. Usually, the rule is usually your character has to be a good person, because I'm not interested in running games for like where like the characters are like bad people. Games where the characters are bad people can be lots of fun. Most of the time, that's not a game I want to run. Complicated people, yes. Bad people, no. Um, Lagnus says I would not lie if I say I read at least 30 minutes of RPG books every night. Yeah, I mean I don't read a lot of novels. So like a lot of the time people are like, "Oh, have you read this? Have you read this?" And I'm like, "No." And it makes it seem like I don't read anything. But I read a lot of RPG books. I read non-fiction stuff. So I read a lot of like scientific articles and stuff like that. Um, but it's like, yeah, a lot of time when people are like, "Oh, what are you reading?" is usually novels. Or maybe some like popular self-helpy pop thing. So yeah, I do read stuff. Oh yeah, also I read like 50 trade paperbacks a year, right, for the Major Spoilers podcast, plus 50 individual issues a year. So I actually read a ton. Um, R.L. Ritchie says, in my open table games, I always hand out pregens based on the player's preferred race. If they actually keep playing, multi-classing is easy and the character will be their own custom within a few levels. Sure. I mean, that's fine. Harvester says, I think they were plenty experienced. They got me into my first D&D actually, but they were very set into how they wanted to do it and didn't give me any concession for how character generation rules would make my life easier for running a concentrated one shot. See, when you say experienced, like experience, I guess like there's a difference between experience and expertise, I guess. It's like this player may have been playing for a long time, but they didn't get that, right? That's something that you learn through different play experiences. Like I have played with people that have been playing D&D since D&D was D&D, or since D&D was chainmail, and some of them are kind of mature about it and also willing to try new things, and some of them are not. Right? Some of them use that experience as a shield so that they don't have to do anything else. It's like, well, I know what RPGs are because I was there at the dawn of time when they were invented, and it's like, yeah, but that doesn't actually mean anything. Like, it's like experience is fine, but um, you also need a varied play experience, right? And sometimes you need to venture out of your comfort zone to just to try it, right? Especially if it was a one shot. Like I would not like I'm not an easy player. I am not an easy player to run for, especially during character creation. There are things that I'm going to want to do, and I'm also I'm also kind of a dry person. Like I'm not like, hey, by the way, blah blah blah. I will just say what I'm thinking. So it's like I think a lot of people will think that I'm like mad or upset or whatever because like the game master is not letting me do what I want. Um, but ultimately, I will follow what the game master wants because especially in a short game, there's no reason to fight it. You can try it, and then you can have a story of like one time the game master made me do this and I hated it. Right? It's like you'll have that. Um, Horsepoint Mind says side note about characters who are bad people. There's a great conversation between Trell and Ket where he keeps insisting he's not good or a nice person, and it's funny how painfully false that is. Ket is so sweet despite himself. Yeah, absolutely right, but It's like that's a great character trait. It's like such a rich character trait. It's like the good character who thinks they're no good, right? Just such a genre staple. Um, Lagna says, I listen to novels and read RPGs. Yep. Alex says, do you have a Goodreads? I don't. I've never started a Goodreads. I only go on Goodreads to read the reviews of my book. Do I have a thing for my book? It comes up every once in a while. But yeah, the only reason I ever go on Goodreads is like an absolute ass to just like go read what people are saying about my book. Um, Harvey says we slowly started interacting with each other. We're down to just talk. Let's just we should probably switch this to just talking for a bit or just chatting. Talking about RPGs. Okay. Uh, Harvey says we slowly started interacting with each other's posts over social media, but the brief getting back in touch that preceded the incident has not come back, which is sad. But I've written it off that we probably have very different wants slash needs in playing RPGs and wouldn't get wouldn't gel well together. Sometimes that happens. Like I I have stopped playing with people because they play a certain way and I don't like it, you know? And it's like it's not wrong, but their instincts are just in a direction that like my games never are, right? It's like I want my game to be like investigative, they want to fight. If I want my game to be fighty, they want to like they come up with like some weird thing that their character can do that they want to be the focus and it doesn't really fit the campaign. Like I've 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 stopped playing with people just because our styles don't mesh, and that's okay. It sucks, especially if you have that friendship, and the friendship kind of revolves around the role playing games, because then it's hard to maintain that friendship. But it's okay, and it's valid. Lagna says, however, I do have some systems I just won't play. 5e, Starfinder, and a few creative. I am not creative. And a few too creative. I am not creative. That's absolutely fair, right? Like if somebody invited me to a fifth edition game, and I had and blah blah blah, you know, I had the time and blah blah blah. I probably would play it, but I'm not. That's I'm not running another D&D game if I can help it anytime soon. Um, Same thing with like Shadowrun. Actually, I played in a Shadowrun game for a bit. It's kind of the game's kind of died now. Um, and even then, it's just like so much stuff to keep track of. I'm like, no, thanks. Um, Harvester says, okay, it's possible that they didn't have that in mind. Yeah, it could be that they were so defensive about having consistently negative D&D experience and meeting resistance on this one for their ones was too much. I still think it was unreasonable, and I came away from that with a lot of hurt. But understanding their situation now, I am less salty about it. Yeah, so this is very important. You just don't know what people are going through or what they've been through, right? Um, I had a friend that I cared about a lot, um, and they would every once in a while use they basically used this was a long time ago, but they would say like that's gay to mean that's stupid, right? Which is terrible. Don't do that. So I talked to them about it. I'm like, well, and they got upset and they're like, well, I'm gonna keep doing it because I want to do it. And so it was tough. It was tough to maintain that friendship. And the next time we talked about it, I figured out why and why she, because she's a lady, why she dug in her heels about it. And the reason is that she's a lady and like men are always telling her what to say and how to say it. And she really bristled at me because usually I'm like a very easygoing guy. I have a lot of female friends and like we get along because I'm not trying to mansplain all over them all the time. But to her, it suddenly felt like I was trying to like leverage the patriarchy against her. And so, we talked about it, and I explained, I'm like, well, it's like, you're part of a marginalized group. I'm part of a marginalized group. Here's another marginalized group that neither one of us is a part of, but that you could hurt by your words. We talked about it. She's fine with it now. She doesn't say that anymore. But again, you don't like that's an example. It's a non RPG example of like I'm trying to do something good by telling you this, and they're like blah because what they're going through just does not jive with the way that you said something, the way that you did something, or your approach to something. If I had approached that differently, it would have been differently, but I had no way of knowing that I had to approach that differently, right? So you run into that. You just don't know what people's life experiences are, even close friends, even family. Alex says, "Oh boy, reading reviews of your own book sounds scary." I have a huge ego. I really do. I literally will just sit around, like not all the time, but I will like take out my book every once in a while and read through it and be like, "Ah, ha, ha, I'm so clever." So the only people like my book is not very popular. The only people that have read my book are mostly people that already like me, like people that have come to the book through Critical Hit or Major Spoilers or whatever, or my Twitter or whatever. So most I have mostly good reviews, and if there's a bad review, I'd be like, okay, well, good note. Um, that's fair, or no, that's stupid. You totally didn't get it, and then that's that. So I don't know. Maybe it's just me. That's just the kind of person I am. Um, R.L. Richie says, I have brutal reviews. Don't seek mine out when I finish yours. Okay. I probably still will, because that's okay. I'm also okay with reading negative reviews to my work. I'm pretty like I said, I'm pretty self confident, so it's okay. Just be truthful. By all means be truthful. Um Horsepawn Mind says, Tallest Rabbit is so good. I like it. Likeness says, "Woo, we derailed the stream. Yeah, you guys super derailed the stream." Um, Harvester says, yeah, I felt that as well. Sometimes styles snag and could create unwanted tension. Yeah, totally. I'm trying to think. Actually, yeah, like I have, I've had like very bristly interactions with game masters who want to do rolled stats, and I know that you wanted to do roll stats and you wanted to do point buy, and I'm like, I hate rolled stats because I always roll low, right? I've never played a game where I rolled stats and my character had decent stats unless there was like game master fiat where they're like, okay, change that second 3 to an 18, right? Um, so um, yeah, Chema was very nearly very useless. So anytime there's like rolled stats, I'm like, can we not do rolled stats, please? But ultimately, I go with what the game master wants, and we just figure it out from there. Um, would you have any interest, says Lagnus, in writing your own RPG system and all? Release a setting book to create the world for an RPG, but not having to do the rules. Yeah, I'm interested in both of those things. I'm working on a couple different RPG systems, but I'm working on them by myself when I have time and energy and the like fervor to want to do it. So they're coming along very slowly, right? If someday I may be able to quit my job, like I might be able to push one of those projects to actually make it into beta and start getting play tested. But I'm moving very slowly. I have thousands of setting ideas, and a couple of like mechanical RPGs that I would want to try out and maybe eventually sell or at least publish. Alex says it's hard to know how to receive criticism from a man. Yeah, because because it's usually just a shotgun blast to the face, right? And it's like I get it. It's like men are always criticizing women, even passively, even without themselves realizing it. Um, like you guys know about microaggressions. Like men are always microaggressing at women. So it's like, yeah, if like somebody comes to you and says stop saying that, you feel patronized. You feel like yeah, you feel like you're being talked down to. That was not my intent, but maybe even my body language and tone and whatever might have fallen into that because that's the way that society works. The patriarchy is like woven into everything, so it's easy to fall into patterns that are hurtful for women and non straight, non cis um, people as well, right? Because the patriarchy messes with those guys too. Harvester says, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Sometimes extra message content can be the problem, and it's tough to suss it out sometimes. But consideration and reflection are so valuable for growing that way. Yeah. Harvester says, oh, yeah, Tallest Rabbit rips. Oh, it rips. Boop. I loved it. Yeah. Tallest Rabbit is fun. Um, Wolf Variety says, "Oh man, same experience. I've never rolled above the average or standard array when I've had to roll stats. God, it's so bad and it's so predictable. I'm like, can we please just do point buy?" And then they're like, "Okay." No, they're not like okay. They're like, "No, just roll. Go ahead." And then it's like garbage, like just the most absolute garbage rolls ever. Roll 4d6 and keep the best three, and it's like it adds up to like a 7. And I'm like, the best three adds up to like a 7, and I'm just like, all right, I guess I'm playing someone who doesn't know how to read, I guess. Um, Lagna says, I don't review books like with movies, comics, and such. I can't really define it better than I like it or don't like it. Now, RPGs and board games I review. I can motivate those better. Yeah, yeah, it's because you're into it. It's like I wouldn't review art, right? Like, what's the name? Like physical, like art on a wall art or like sculpture, right? I just don't know enough about it to be like, oh well, I feel that this is puerile and premature and blah blah. It's like I don't know enough about it. I've read enough comics and I know enough about how comic books work to be like, to say the stuff that I usually say on the show, which is like, boy, this story would have been a lot more fun 10 years ago before all the stuff that we went through. Now it seems kind of tone deaf, right? It's like I feel like I give that review with some frequency because yeah, it's things change. Lagna says the Sentinels Comics RPG tweeted a quote from my RPG Geek review of that system. That was a nice ego boost. Also, I'm famous now. Yeah. I don't know if I personally have ever gotten into the back cover of a book, but lots of people at Major Spoilers have. Steven has, Matthew has, where like they review a book and they do a pull quote. So that's always nice. That's always nice to see that or to see somebody that get something like that. Um, Alex says, I appreciate your self reflection and how you talk to people, and I'd love to see more people follow your example. Yeah, I mean, uh, it comes from being hurt myself, right? It's like growing up in a different country, around people that aren't the people that I knew when I was a kid, because I'm an immigrant. uh, you have two options. Either you like turn into like a little ball of spikes, or you just learn it, right? You like learn all the interactions so that you can like move in and out of the way or whatever. And it's like once you start learning that, it actually becomes easier to be like, oh, well, like gay people or like queer people are having similar problems, not the same but similar, and like black people are having similar problems, and like yeah, trans people are having similar problems, and women are having similar problems. Um, so it becomes a lot easier to just extend that empathy and just be like, okay, well, what are you going through? And then when they're like, well, I'm going through this, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. It's like I didn't know because I'm too busy like dealing with my own shit. But it's like once people tell you what they're going through, then you can be like, oh, okay, yeah, 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 all right, I get it. I'm gonna stop doing this thing that's like hurtful to you because you can. You're able to stop hurting people casually. It's like, why wouldn't you do that? Harvester says, I enjoy rolling stats, but with pretty generous provisions. My 5e artificer was rolled, and after human stat boost at first level, his intelligence was his best stat at a 14. I went through with it. I went with it though. Ah, God, it's like I don't know about 5e. I haven't played it too much, but like D&D is like very demanding as far as like min maxing. Like you have to min max in D&D. At least third and fourth edition, you did. So it's like coming in with like a substandard like primary stat just seems like absolute like it just seems so terrible to me. If it was a one shot, maybe, but it's like other than that, it just seems like really terrible. Um, Likeness says, "Wow, this comic is really tone deaf." Rodrigo, major spoilers on the back of some comic book. Wouldn't that be great? I got it. I got it. Like I got or not I, but Steven got a really sternly worded letter from a publisher. I'm not gonna say who it was because of one of my reviews, and it's because my review was kind of like that. I was like, this, like, I just went through and just like picked it apart, and they were really not happy about that. So they sent a very sternly worded letter to Steven, and Steven was like, well, it's major spoilers. Like we don't censor our writers, so he can say whatever he wants. Sorry, you know. So it's like it's nice to have that backup. Let's see. Harvestry must have must have written something that tripped the thing. So we'll see what that was. I can still see it, I think. Let's see. Though that was, Harvester says, though that was nice provisions, I didn't want to push it further and took the suboptimal stats. I made it to fourth level before he was killed by a falling cottage, not as a result of less than stellar stats. Oh, not as a result. Well, yeah, most D&D characters can't survive being hit by an entire cottage. Lagnus says, I kid. One of the reasons I do enjoy major spoilers so much is that you can all review and talk about this stuff on there. As in, after listening, I understand what I would think of the comic. Yeah, that's the point of critics, right? You find critics that you jive with, and then they help you suss out the, like, especially now, just like massive deluge of entertainment that you can partake in, right? Like, that's the point of critics. That's what critics are for. That's why, like, that's why, like that's why it's terrible that so many critics are actually kind of shills, and they're like they're content creators, so they need Wizards of the Coast or Nintendo or Sony or whoever to keep sending them stuff and keep inviting them to events. So they're very reluctant to, when they find something they don't like, to actually voice it. But at major spoilers, nobody invites us to anything, so you're always gonna hear like pretty much exactly what we think of something. Um, what even was it? Uh, oh yeah, Harvester said, "Hey, this thing you said do is hurtful to people. Maybe don't say that. I can say what I want. Yeah, but you're choosing to be an ass. Okay, yeah. I did say ass earlier, so I'm sorry about that. But yes, as you guys might know, my filter is a little aggressive. Um, I've been trying to find different ones, but I haven't been able to find one that I like. It's okay, Harvestry. Don't worry about it. Balui says, unfortunately, I feel it can go two ways. You can develop more empathy, or try to make yourself more like the main group and lose a lot of yourself. Yeah, absolutely. Um, and it's because you're fleeing that pain, right? It's like if I, like classic, if I act white, then the white kids will stop picking on me. And it works. The problem is that it works to a certain degree, but they might stop picking on you, but they never accept you as such, right? Definitely not the mean white kids that are like picking on you. Lagna says, I would never ever do anything but point by in Pathfinder. A few bad rolls and you are totally useless and might as well start over. Yeah, some games are just like really terrible about that. Now, Harvester says I used the word cleverly disguised earlier. Nice. No, you did. Yeah. Yeah, that was smart. Alex says, I do audiobook reviews for a couple magazines. One of the narrators I rated favorably emailed me the sweetest letter after, and I'm cheering for her career so hard. Do you ever get positive feedback like that? I do get positive feedback sometimes. Um, I review a lot of indie comics, so I will get contacted sometimes by indie creators who are like, "Hey, thanks for reviewing my comic. Here's like a thing to like download the next issue," and I'm like, "I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad you liked the review, but I don't tell them this, but I'm like, well, if the next issue is garbage, I'm gonna say it's garbage." And also, I'm very bad about keeping up with books. That's why I review so many number one issues. Is because I'm like, well, it's like, oh, the next issue came out like 3 weeks ago. It's outside of our review window. I didn't catch it then. I was reviewing something else, so I missed it. So a lot of time when I get keys for reviews, I'm like, thanks. I'll just put it in my pocket here, and then a lot of time I never use it. Um, Lagnus says, in games like Only War, I'm fine with rolling. It's part of the system, so to speak. Yeah, if the game has like, if the game has sort of like character creation as play and there are roles involved, that's a lot stronger than just like roll for these stats and then play whatever that fits, or put them wherever it fits to make the character you want. Harvester says my character died to fail death saves. The thing 5e players insist literally never happens. I've had two of my own die to death saves, and as a DM, have seen four at my own tables. It's like, yeah, yeah. It's you don't get a bonus. Do you get a bonus to death saves in 5e? Because if not, then you have a 50% chance to fail a death save. At least in fourth edition, you did. Uh, it's on me. I should really know by now. Yeah, that's okay. Um, Lagnus says never trust a reviewer who loves and would buy everything, especially when it's WotC. That's like the most expensive way to enjoy the hobby. Yeah, and it's like a lot of reviewers end up having to buy product and stuff, and that's fine. But if you get an honest review of it, that's good. That's why if you're talking about WotC stuff, that's why I like Tolarian Academy is a good resource. Um, the professor has gotten pretty big, but continues to be have pretty good integrity about things. He made a whole video about how he like kickstarted a thing to make like that are some like big fancy deck boxes, and he made a whole video that's like, hey, you don't have to trust me when I review deck boxes from here on out because I made some, like I'm part of the industry now, but like you should because actually I've been doing this for a long time and I don't plan on like not on like changing things. And I'm like, yeah, all right, but yeah, it happens. Lagna says this box of $250. This box for $250 is really needed to play this campaign. Look, you get a map and some flim flam 3D printed plastic to hand out to players. Amazing. Yeah, that's not great. Um, Baloo says I've had a couple of 5e characters die. Yeah. Harvester says you can get situational bonuses from some spells, and by 6th level, hanging out with a paladin boosts all of your saves by a lot. Okay. Baloo says also, the massive damage optional rule can kill off your character, especially in the early levels. Yeah. Horsepawn Mine says, I really love the professor, and I barely keep up with magic anymore. Yeah, no, he's good. I don't watch half his videos, right? Just because I'm not keeping up with magic as much. But yeah, Tolarian Academy is a good resource. It's like when he's like having cosplayers come in and like interviewing them in character and stuff. It's like, oh, that's cute, but but that I don't need that. Like, just tell me like anytime I'm like, oh, this seems like a terrible gaff by WotC, right? Like something like comes into my radar. I check what Tolarian Academy is saying about it because he's got good insight, and I'm not like, oh, he's going to like parrot my opinion back to me because he doesn't. Or I'm going to base my opinion off of what he says because I'm too opinionated to like really rely on somebody else's opinion. But it can inform my opinion if they approach it from a different angle that I didn't think of. Um, I really, yep, okay. Oh, my first 5e characters as Harvestry was a Tiefling Bard. He was at first level and decided to attack an orc instead of disengaging to not be a coward. Next turn, OOP orc crit with a Great Axe and did more than his maximum HP and died immediately. Yeah, early level characters can do that. Alex, Rulesman Alex, which most of you guys probably don't know. Some of you do because you're old school critical hit types. Yeah, Rulesman Alex tells this story about him like accidentally killing two PCs on the very first session of a D&D game just because he just had an archer with a longbow, right? That just like deals a D8 of damage, but like he crit one and just immediately obliterate him because like rolling 2d8 against a level 1 character is like more hit points that it could hope to have. Um, some level 1 characters. This was like in D&D 3.5, and then like shot another one twice and just killed him again. So it's like I think it was a 4-person campaign, and he killed half the party um, in the first encounter. And then it's like, okay, what do we do with the rest of the game? I don't know what he did with the rest of the game. I don't know if he like kept playing and made new characters, or if they just pitched the whole thing. Um, Legna says, "Do you want to break out the new Lancer stuff for Critical Hit? Any foreshadowing?" I do want to play Lancer in Critical Hit. Like, it really seems just because of how much I like Lancer, uh, it, that it's an inevitability, right? It's also a good fit because, not to toot my own horn, but Critical Hit is basically built partially on my storytelling, right? Part of the reason why people come to Critical Hit is because of the stories that I created along with everyone else, right? Obviously, it's cooperative, but as a game master, I just had like a stronger voice in a lot of these things. Lancer fits that well, so eventually I do want to run a long term game of Lancer on Critical Hit. Um, but before that happens, I want to run a few short term games, some of which might be Lancer. Um, but yes, eventually I'm already working. I'm kind of already working on the campaign that I want to run for Critical Hit. And by that I mean I'll work on something for a long time, then look at it and usually be like, this is too complicated. Like I don't like like players are going to have to like if your players have to interrogate the historiography of your setting, then maybe your setting's too complicated. Unless you have players who like that. But the Critical Hit crew is not that, right? They could, but they're not going to have fun doing that. Um, let's see. Uh, Balui says, I kind of wanted to see how the D&D magic rules mix, as they don't seem like they would well, but I don't know magic. Kind of wanted to see how the D&D. Oh, D&D and magic rules. They don't. They don't. They don't mix well. Running D&D for a magic setting doesn't make sense. Like magic has a very strong and distinct like themes around magic, and D&D has strong and distinct themes around magic that are very different. So no, they I don't think they work. Um, 4E kind of help with that by giving early characters larger HP pools. Yeah, absolutely. 5E did away with that aspect. Well, that's too bad. Harvester says, I like that 4E characters are built to have a mini encounter adventuring day from level 1. Yeah, that's always been a great thing about 4th edition is that at first level, your character is survivable. Your character can have multiple encounters. Your character already does the things that they're supposed to be good at, right? It's like a first level ranger in 4th edition, like, is already a ranger. Like a first level ranger in um, 5th edition, like, doesn't know certain aspects of being a ranger and it's like learns them later, and it's like, why? Like, how is this guy already employed as a ranger by the city guard if like he doesn't actually know this thing that's vital for being a ranger? That doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. You know how it is. Um, at 5e, a first level character might scream for a long rest after a single fight, or else get cut down in a following skirmish the same day. Yeah, absolutely. Saint says Void Saga Lancer confirmed. No, we are not. We are not mixing the Void Saga and Lancer. Although I did have a very nerdy post on Twitter where I assigned mechs to every one of the sparkle tomes. So I guess that is also floating around. Horsepawn Mind says, "This is great news to me. I've been really wanting a good Lancer AP to help me grok it. It might be a long time before you hear this, but I think it'll happen eventually. Obviously, you can't always plan for what's going to happen in the future, but as long as I'm around and Critical Hits around, a Lancer campaign is more of a when than a whether it's going to happen." Horsepawn Mind says, "In a war against the Rakshasi, the Deva turned to powerful artifice and created walking weaponized giants." No, I'm not doing that. Um, Stop asking. No, it's fine. Lagna says, "I'm running the One Ring starter set at home. Has been a ton of fun. Hobbits doing Hobbit stuff in the Shire. I have changed things around a bit, of course, to add more flimsy Hobbit stuff, or yeah, flimsy Hobbit stuff for them to do. Yeah, that sounds fun." Harvester says, "Milestones and action points from level 1 for all 4 EPCs is such a great framework to help facilitate longer, more tense delves." Yeah, it's like you want your characters. It's like, uh, what's a good example? Hang on a second. Let me get some water. Okay, so some animals. This is going to be a very roundabout way of getting to this. Some animals occupy multiple niches in environments as they grow up. So something like monitor lizards, right? Or like Komodo dragons. Like Komodo dragons are a good example because they're huge. They start out as little tiny babies, and so they're like insectivores that spend a lot of time in trees. Like they'll actually climb trees a lot. And then eventually they get too big to climb trees and too big to have to run away from stuff because they're like the biggest predator around, so they don't have to worry about climbing trees anymore. And any prey that goes up a tree is not large enough for them anyway, right? I feel like that's what playing a lot of D&D versions is like. It's like when you first start playing your character, you have to employ certain techniques. You actually have to play the character a certain way to get them to survive. And then as they start gaining more levels and more hit points and have more options, it morphs into probably what you wanted in the first place, or hopefully what you wanted in the first place. It's like, yeah, if you start with a level 1 wizard, you're not just running around zapping people with spells. You zap someone with a spell once, and then like take out your crossbow, and you're like, because you're out of spells, right? It's like you have one more spell, but what if there's another encounter, right? It's like you can't waste that spell slot. So that's kind of what it feels like a lot of the time playing D&D. Um, Lagna says the 10th level ranger in 5th edition is still not a ranger. They got by the math done. Let's see. They got by the math done in was my impression from read the PHB. Now Paladin can do it all. Oh, you're saying like the math screws them over. Yeah. No, I believe that. I've heard that. I've heard the Ranger is terrible in 5th edition. Lagna says the Lancer rules to run the mech combat are easy to get into. If you just run it, I do the encounters in CompCon. Yeah, I use CompCon too. I got a chance to run a short Lancer campaign, just like 3 sessions, just like a short game. Um, and yeah, CompCon is great, and it keeps getting better. Like it just got a big update again now that the new now that the Kerrigan Barony stuff is out. So yeah, it actually just keeps getting better and better. Like CompCon is the gold standard for character creation uh, applications, and yeah, it's really good. Let's see. Sejito says, "I totally respect your right to never do any Void Saga again. It won't stop me for wishing for it." I guess that's fair. Um, Harvester says, "Hydrate your face, your Oh, hide your face ports, everybody. Yeah. This sounds like the progression when you start the game of Spore. Yeah, actually, that's Spore is actually a good example of like drastically different gameplay at each stage, and it's like, but that's not what you want in D&D, right? Because that's not one of the themes, right? This is something I talk a lot about. D&D has a lot of accidental themes, right? It's like when you read the fluff of the book, or when they're like the book itself is pitching the game to you, it's like, oh, savage adventure, and you do this, and you help people, and you save dragons, and you kill princesses, and whatever. Um, you know, and then when you get into the game, like money is a huge aspect of it. That's not something they talk about. It's like, why does this entire game hinge on money? Right? It's like, yeah, getting treasure is fun, but the entire game hinges on money. You have to pay for things, you have to do things, and what you do when you do those things is get money. So it's like, it is like your character is like a mercenary no matter what, because they're always having to look for money. Like, you can't play that wandering folk hero who doesn't accept the money, because you need the money to move forward in the game. Like, you just do. Although I've heard that in fifth edition, like eventually money stops being important, which is again another weird, like again, just these like unanalyzed themes in the game that just keep getting passed on and on and on through the generations. Um, Balui says, though I have gone back to play the original Baldur's Gate, I forget how horrible the 2E rules can be, like classes being locked for humans. Yeah, yeah, that's not great. Harvestry says, "Oh yeah, I have played some of Baldur's Gate 2, and it was highly unintuitive to me. To soften the addition friction, I made my character Pitbull. Oh, that's cool." Uh, Balui says, "Yeah, Baldur's Gate is a great game, but hampered by the 2E rule set." Harvester says, "Rangers in 5e are fine, but they have identity versus mechanics issues." Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about, right? They were a lot more thematically consistent as a martial class in 4e. That's right. 4e, the last time Rangers and fighters, and probably monks, were good, but monks were complicated in 4e. Um, Lagnus says, next weekend I'm running the Troubleshooters, the Franco-Belgian inspired RPG. That's cool. Horse One Mind says, at Lagnus, I saw that the game at the game store after you mentioned it in here. It was plastic wrap, so I couldn't read it, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it once you've run it. Yeah, you should tell us about it. Harvester says D&D has a lot of modern colonialism in its very themes, and is extremely difficult to avoid it. It's impossible to avoid that, right? It's like, I hate it, but you can find pro-colonial aspects in the Void Saga, because they're like so baked into D&D that it's hard to do away with them. Like, I tried for the game to not have those aspects, right? But it still does, right? Just because like it's like built into the mechanics. It's kind of terrible. You have to work very, very hard to excise those themes from your game, because they're so basic to it. Um, Lagnus says there are free quick start rules online at Helmgast's homepage. If you want a quick glimpse at what the rules are like, yeah, you should check it out. Oh, here's a thing for my book. Balui says, yeah, 5e money is unimportant for many classes like wizards and monks. Yeah, which is weird, because that's your, like the main. Oh, sorcerers. That's like your main reward anyway. Lagnus says there's also, at least on YouTube, a video of Man Reads book of the troubleshooters. I can't link to it, or the bot will have my hide. Yeah, you can't do links on this stream. I'm sorry, guys. I'm still working on. I'm working on where I want it, and like as a creator of color, I'm still a little worried about like bot raids. So I don't wanna allow people to do links. Someday when I'm a big deal and I have mods, like they'll allow, like they'll be able to like turn that on and off, I guess. Let's see. Harvester says wizards are one of the classes incentivized to build money. They can pay to scribe extra spells into their books if the GM dangles those in front of them. Yeah, yeah. It's like some classes need money, some classes don't. Some classes have alternate uses for money, which makes them, it might make the money that comes in to them either more useful or less useful because or like yeah or like it's like, oh, I'm expected to do something that benefits the party with the personal money that I receive, whereas like the monk is not. They can just stash all that money and buy new monk pants later because they're not expected to use this money to benefit the rest of the party like I do with my class feature that does this, right? So it's not great. Let's see. Horse One Mind says, "I will die on the hill that 4E monks should have been the martial controller." I get that. I don't think that they should have been controllers, but they could have been very controlly strikers, and it would have been perfectly okay to have another martial striker. The Frog. Hey, thanks for the subscription, The Frog. I really appreciate it. Um, QB75 says, I love playing a fighter in 4E. I got so bored playing one in 5E and eventually multiclass to get some enjoyment. Yeah, I, you know, I'll I said it before and I'll say it again. Fourth edition was pretty much the first and last time the fighter was good. Um, Balui says in 2E druids are useless. In 3E they are overpowered. In 4E they are okay, but never felt like a druid to me. That's fair. And 5E I think they're overpowered again. I think they are. Somebody was telling me that like druids are just above and beyond just because of the way their like transformation stuff works. Harvester says, "Hey, hey, I enjoy the 5E fighter." Okay. It being a third level subclass adopter instead of a first level one does make some themes hard to work with at outset, but once subclasses come in, I really enjoy how broad the fighter can be identity wise. Does anybody run 5th edition games that start below level 3? I don't think anybody does that anymore. Harvester says, I will concede that my favorite fighter subclass, the Battlemaster, is also the 4ES fighter subclass they made for it. Yeah, that's why the fighter's good, or that's why the fighter's okay in in 5th edition. It's because they borrowed a bunch of stuff from 4th edition. Harvestry says, and also a soft apology for leaving out Warlord as a full class. What are you gonna do? Once again, the Frog. Thank you for your subscription. Love those Prime subs. Give me your Prime subs. Harvestry says, in where am I at? In my late 4E days, I was brainstorming a monk variant that should be a dex-based leader. I fell off so hard as I considered the breadth of content I would have needed to create. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Writing, like, 4th edition, like, creating new stuff for 4th edition is very writing intensive because if you create a new class, you have to create a bunch of new powers, right? So, um, oh, QB75. Thanks for the sub. I really appreciate it. Wow, you guys are subbing today. I should do weekend streams more often, huh? Let's see. Lagna says, Man Reads Book is what I and others called a video of someone going through the book. Yes. Harvester says, Our Icewind Dale game began at first level, and previously our Dragon Heist game did as well. All right, fine. People do still start their games at first level. Um, yeah, all right. So yeah, I guess in summary, fourth edition rules. Every other edition, no, I'm just kidding. There's lots of things to like in other editions. Harvester says powers and feats for 30 levels of a class. No, gosh darn, thank you. I really love that 5e is much easier to homebrew. Player options for monster creation was more satisfying as a 4e DM. It is. Monster creation is actually fun in 4th edition. Especially once you have a good grip of the rules. Creating new monsters is fun. I did a lot of reskinning. Like most of the stuff that I did for the Void Saga was reskinning, but towards the end I had to make new monsters because there just aren't enough epic level monsters. They just really aren't. So unless I wanted to like throw the same character at them over and over, I had to basically write my own monsters, which I had done before as well, a little bit. But yeah, you just have to. It's writing monsters for fourth edition, like basically coming up with a gimmick and coming up with how to like defend that gimmick or make sure the gimmick happens like at least once in a fight. when you're facing off these like very deadly, very survivable player characters. It's actually kind of fun. Balui says, I felt 5e is kind of made for more homebrewing stuff, yeah, or ignoring rules, and that's why. Is because I think things in fourth edition fit loosely. It's like fourth edition is a cake, right? It's like all the ingredients were put in at a specific time, and it's like tight. It's like cake, and then frosting, and then more cake, and then fondant on top, and like that's fourth edition. Like fifth edition is a sandwich, right? It's like bread and then whatever you have, and then another bread, and it kind of like falls apart when you're trying to eat it. But it's fine. Everybody loves sandwiches. It's fine. I think that's kind of how I would describe the difference between those two editions, from what I've seen anyway. Now Harvester says, actually, wait, no, we started Icewind Dale at second. Well, okay, I'm glad we're just splitting the difference and going for second level then. Lagnus says, I'm just hoping that 5.5e they say is coming out and makes an edition war. You haven't experienced RPGs until you've had an edition war and taken your toys and gone home. I think it's going to create an edition war because it's expensive. Um, it's like the first glimpse at the rules for the new version of 5th edition is like in a $75 like hardcover collection or something like that. So it's like not a lot of people are going to have access to these rules for a while. Um, Lagnus says the man who won't play any Shadowrun after 3. Well, Shadowrun is its own thing. Harvester says 4E, I had a good time figuring out the balance for diseases, curses, traps. I never dipped my toes into ritual design. Ritual design is either tougher or easier depending on how you come to creating stuff. You can make reasonably decent rituals by just being like, what's this thing that is inconvenient? Let's make a way around it. Um, and you can make really overpowered rituals by accident too that way. And the other thing is just like rules wise, what's like the power level of a ritual? What would be an appropriately powerful thing to do for this like 10th level ritual or whatever? Um, Balui says, though, I don't know if that is applicable to tabletop, but the Pathfinder games they have released have too many classes and do the same thing. I get that. Horsewine Mind says, I think it's just a matter of time until D&D is a subscription-based service. Now that WotC bought Beyond, I mean, it might be someday. And if that's the case, they better have good tools, right? They better have a good online character creator. If you have to pay money and their character creator is garbage, then it's not worth the money, right? Same thing with like encounter creator or map creator. Like if you're paying money, if you're paying an ongoing subscription to play D&D, you better get active ongoing benefits, right? But Louis says some of the classes are just worse versions than another class. That happens a lot. That happens a lot, especially in D20 games, which is sad. Lagnus says WotC has the PR machine to sell the expensive stuff. No PDF option is usually a no sell for me. Yeah, totally. Harvester says WotC owning Beyond may actually lead to digital access included with physical books. Yeah, we'll see. Also, WotC is a traded company, and the demand is that your profit is up every year or you have failed. Yep. No, definitely. Thankfully, they have Magic the Gathering, and that continues to top itself every year. Isn't WotC owned by Hasbro? Yeah, it is. Yeah. So they have an overlord that demands it. Did WotC buy fandom? No, I don't think so. Fandom is like its own thing. I don't know that it belongs to anybody. Let's check. Who owns fandom? Integrated Media Company LLC. that's a that's a like max headroom name if ever I heard one. It's like, listen, you can't. I know you're writing this book. I know you can't like. Don't name your company Integrated Media LLC. That's like too obvious for an evil conglomerate. The fans own fandom. No, they definitely don't. Oh. They bought D&D Beyond from fandom. Oh, okay. I see. I see what you're saying. That makes sense. All right. Give me just a minute. I'm gonna what am I gonna do? Yep, I gotta refill my water and then I'll be right back. Be right back. All right. Uh, let's see. People really love the 3 system, even though I like it. They have many faults. Yeah, it does. Um, yeah, talking about 3.5, Pathfinder did overtake 4E until 5E came out. I think it took them 3 months to claim the top spot by themselves, and now they have about 85% of the market. Yeah, you know why so many people are jumping onto 5th edition is streamers, right? 5th edition is the best selling edition ever for Dungeons and Dragons, and it's not because the game itself is like the best D&D has ever been, is because this is when streaming became a thing, right? Like we, critical hit, um, major spoilers, spent a lot of time using WotC products on the Void Saga, and just kind of giving them publicity. And then eventually you got like mega smash hits like Critical Role, which has like a massive following, right? So um, that's kind of why 5th edition is like the biggest edition ever. Harvester says my only exposure to 3 was using the online free resources to build a character. A level 1 cleric took me about 2 hours to build, and I was so lost. Yeah, no, I get that. But Louis says it's weird what one edition can do to swing the market wildly, or what outside pressures do as well. Saint W says 2E is my favorite for a lot of reasons that have little to do with the system. I mean that happens. Sometimes you get into stuff, um, even if it's not really that important to, or you get into stuff and it colors your opinion because of like where you were in your life at the time, or there's lots of reasons to like something. Horsepawn Mine says, "Lol, I remember in the Void Saga postmortem, I asked if you had any advice for your past self, and you said don't do it, partially because of the WotC free marketing." Yeah, it was mostly a joke, but also yeah, like fourth edition is the best, in my opinion. Fourth edition is the best that D&D has ever been. Um, it just addresses a lot of the problems that other editions have. Maybe it doesn't give you the best answer, but it gives you an answer. That said, yeah, it's like I don't regret having run the Void Saga for 10 years because we had a lot of fun. Like if for no other reason, we had a lot of fun. But also, it's been good, like all of you guys are here chatting with me because honestly, probably because you know me from Critical Hit. Um, so it's yeah, it's opened some doors for me. It was good. But I also sometimes I'm like, man, I wish that it wasn't so much D&D, right? Cuz as we've said, D&D has some inherent problems that that the designers and the creators of D&D have no interest in addressing, right? So, yeah, sometimes I'm like, man, I wish that I had made the Void Saga like 2 or 3 seasons instead of like the 5 or so that it was, and that we had switched to a different game and a different thing. I wish we had done Fate or something else. For another longish campaign. But in the end, it's fine. Like I said, I don't regret it. But looking back on it, sometimes I'm like, we really did give WotC a lot of free advertising, which is fine, and we got some books out of the deal here and there, which is fine. Um, but yeah, I just kind of wish we had done some other things too. Now we have the opportunity to do other things, and maybe now's a better time to be doing other things. I think part of the deal with the Void Saga is that it's so long and so bingeable, right? Is like maybe that helped us, and maybe it's good that it's that colossal D&D game. Um, but Louis says, though I have never played the original edition of Dungeons and Dragons, I may hate that one more. I think 5e is my favorite edition, followed by 4e. Oh, my Switch finally went to sleep. Let me. I think I can play some music here in the background, so this is not so empty. How you guys doing? You guys enjoying this? Like, is it like do you guys enjoy just like seeing my big stupid face while we're talking? Like, the chat is active enough that I have trouble like concentrating on Pokemon. So I hope this is okay. I hope you're not like, oh well, you need to be able to do both or whatever, because I really can't past a certain degree. Uh, can you guys hear that? There we go. Okay. Where am I at? Many people might, Lagnus says, maybe many people might be lost in first edition of D&D. Gygax et al. Assumed that people would take the game, play it, and add their own rules as they go. Yeah, sure. But Louis says, I just felt 4E gets a bad rap since Pathfinder was taking off because people refused to accept the change. Yeah, 4E, almost all of the criticism against 4E is not warranted. There is lots of criticism against 4th edition that is perfectly warranted, but that is not what people use online to detract from 4th edition, right? Like, again, well, we've talked about it, right? It's like these like political structures, these like unanswered, uh, uninvestigated themes. Um, Characters are actually too survivable. Like characters have too many hit points. It makes fights like really slow, and they don't. Unlike Lancer, like Lancer, the way you play Lancer, like vanilla Lancer, is there's always a mission in every fight. So fights can be over as soon as the mission is done. So they don't all need to be slobber knockers, right? And fourth edition didn't tell you that, or if it did, it didn't have clear structured rules to achieve that. So it like fights are a slog. Those are real legitimate issues with fourth edition, but most people are like, oh, it's too much like an MMORPG or whatever, and they're like, is that bad? How's that bad? People love MMORPGs, and also it's not, and you're wrong. You just don't know enough about games to understand what a what different ways of capping the amount of time that somebody can do something are. It's like, oh, this is like a cooldown from an MMORPG. Yeah, because that's your only frame of reference. You don't play enough games to know what this actually is, right? So, whatever. Yeah, 4E gets a bad rap for the wrong reasons. If 4E got a bad rap for legit reasons, I would probably be much more okay with it. Richie says, Fate rocks. I think we had a talk once about how you play Fate like it's 4E, and you play Fate, and you play 4E like it's Fate. Yeah, I mean, definitely it, whenever I play Fate, I bring a lot more structure to it. Um, so, so that the players will have stuff to hang off of, right? But, I think some people that play Fate all the time would probably bristle at that level of structure. So, again, I'm the sort of person who can't play a game as written, right? Like, I have opinions, and once I feel that I understand a game, I'm like, okay, here are some things that I can change to make it like closer to what I want. Harvester says, Void Saga was such a rad campaign. I like to recommend it for its own sake, as well as a great demonstration of 4E and its strengths. Anybody who claims 4E is only a tactical miniatures game and doesn't facilitate roleplay could gain a lot by listening to any arc of CH Void Saga. Yeah, CH Avoid Saga. That'd be good. We should do that. I'm gonna do a bootleg version of the Void Saga called Avoid Saga. And it'll feature characters like Urem and Medium Sparkle. It'll be good times. Yeah, I really enjoy. Yeah, I like fourth edition, and once I basically got out the hammer and fixed skill challenges. Actually, I forget the quotes. I fixed skill challenges. Um, once those were able, it gives us like this mechanical way for players to take control of the narrative to a certain degree, right? Or it gives a lot more control back to the players, narrative control. So yeah, it made the game a lot more of a back and forth, right? And obviously, you can roleplay in any game. Really, the issue is how does the usually skill system interface with social interactions? And that is something that no game has solved, right? It's like some games do it in a clever way, some games do it in a very structured game, some games like D&D are like, figure it out. So, you get a little bit of everything. But I'm glad you enjoyed the Void Saga. I obviously had a very good time putting it together and running it for the players. Horsepoint Mind says, yeah, I'm really thankful the Void Saga exists how it does, even if it has a complicated relationship to D&D's issues. Yeah. I mean, that's the best we could hope for, right? It's like, at least it has a complicated relationship with D&D. That's good. If it had an uncomplicated relationship with D&D, it would probably be very boring. Lagnus says, I do not agree on the accept change at Balui. Many I know just didn't like 4E. I tried it once and didn't like it. Not every system is for everyone, and saying it's because of change is a bit of a slap. I don't play Pathfinder 2E because I hate change. I don't play it because I think 1E is better. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. it's valid to look at it both ways, right? On the one hand, it's like change is fine, right? It's like if there's a new edition coming out, there's a lot of reasons why you might want to embrace that new edition. Um, Mostly being support and the fact that other players are going to be more interested in the newest thing. On the other hand, like new editions are an artificial thing, right? They're not a fact of life. They're not like written into the fabric of the universe. They're a money thing, right? And a product thing. So not going like sometimes the most revolutionary action you can take is to keep playing third edition, right? It's not that revolutionary, but it's something, right? Not accepting the change is also fine, especially if you have your reasons for doing that, and that's fine. And like again, fourth edition gets a really bad rap for all the wrong reasons, right? If like when people are like you can't customize your character as much as you can with third edition, I'm like, yep, you're right. You know, I'm not going to argue that. It's absolutely true. Third edition allows you to customize the crap out of your characters. You can make very weird, very unique characters with third edition that you can't do with fourth edition. Like, that's true. Fourth edition does that on purpose. I don't think it's a flaw of fourth edition that you can't customize your characters as much because again, it's going for like a tighter feel, right? It's like a smaller box that you can do whatever you want within that box. Whereas like third edition, like it's a much bigger box and also the box is full of holes and also it's like dangling from a string. So like it's you just have like a lot more options. Um, but that's a perfectly fair criticism, right? It's perfectly fair that you're like, I like third edition and I like Pathfinder because the characters are so much more customizable. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. You're right. You know, it's like there are things that third edition does better than fourth edition. I'm sure there are things that fifth edition does better than fourth edition. I just can't can't be bothered to keep reading D&D books. Every time I open, like every once in a while, I'm like, I kind of have this idea for a D&D character, and I immediately know how to stat it out in 4th edition, right? But I'm like, I wonder if there's a way to do it in 5th edition. So I pull out my 5th edition PHB, open it, flip a few pages, and I'm like, I'm so tired. And I just like put it away. Like it just has so many like the fifth edition PHB just has so many useless charts that it just like exhausts me immediately. Which I know is like a very dumb old guy thing to say. Like, I know that it sounds like I'm dismissing this whole edition. And I'm not. I recognize that a lot of people, more people than ever, are having a lot of fun with 5th edition, but I just don't like it. I'm just like, God, I don't want to play this. I don't want to play D&D anymore. And this is more like D&D. They're not taking D&D in a new and interesting way. They're literally walking back all the stuff that I liked about 4th edition. So I was like, forget it. St. W says, this is great to be honest. RPG talk with someone I really respect in RPGs. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad you guys like it. Harvester says, music is good. Could I request you lower the volume a little? I find it competes with your speaking a lot. Okay, all right. How's that? Is that better? I'm always here for Rodrigo chatting first, gameplay second, unless it's that fart game that was riveting gameplay. No, it was. I have never been so distressed on air. I think. If you wanna hear what I probably would sound like during a major earthquake or something like that, the Debonair Bear incident is probably a good way to experience that. Um, Horseborn Mind says, I'd say that 4E's intrinsic reliance on some kind of external character builder was a big failing. You don't need one, but it really helps. I don't think it didn't have an intrinsic reliance on a character builder. It feels like it did because actually character builders that are well built, like the first character builder, are so helpful, just so helpful that it feels like you need to do it. And we did. We started with the downloadable character builder. Then they discontinued that and went to the online character builder. So we switched to the online character builder. The character builder was built on Microsoft Silverlight, So eventually, browsers stopped being able to handle it. So, and we still kept using it. We would just like dig up old versions of Microsoft Explorer so that we could like use the character builder. And then that fell apart. So we had to start using the fan built version of the old character builder, which again, when it first started, was like a clunky but good app. But when we started using it again, was this like shambling monstrosity that like was inoperable for like most OSs. So by the end of the Void Saga, I was making everybody's character sheet. They would tell me what they wanted, and I would put it like I would like try to like prime and like get the like character builder going, and then I would have to build everybody's characters from there because nobody else could get it to work at that point. But that's the thing. The character builder was so convenient in a game that's as crunchy as fourth edition um, that we had to use it. We just absolutely had to use it because once you've used it, um, there's no. Are my captions not? Oh, hang on. Weep. Check, check, check. Okay. Once you've used it, you just can't go back. It's not intrinsic to fourth edition. It just feels that way because it's also the best D&D character builder that there's ever been. So yeah, it feels like it's necessary, but it's not. Let's see. I don't know what the system is called, but I really like the Star Wars Edge of the Empire die system. Yeah, I don't know what it's called either, but I know what you mean with like the wacky different like pips die with like a little. It's like one side has like a Tie Fighter, and one side has like Qui-Gon Jinn's face like judging you. Yeah, I know what you mean. Hardison says people who assume the two ability uses are mana bar and MMO cooldown are exhausting. Yeah, it's like you just haven't played that many games, right? It's like fourth edition borrows from a lot of indie games, um, kind of in a bad way in some ways, but it's like these people wouldn't know because they don't play any indie RPGs. Um, Baloo says I've played a couple of games with those dice and it's always interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Those are fun. Harvester says people who assume. Oh yeah, you said that. Richie RL Richie says, yeah, you've definitely got a group that already seems to really love that structure. Obviously, you bring a lot to your own game every time. Yeah, and that helps a lot, right? It's like except for uh, except for Matthew to a certain degree because he had been playing for a while. Like I I personally was a significant, obviously Dr. Will, not so much, or not at all. But I was like a significant part of each of these people's role playing experience, right? Rob and Brian were playing games with me, and like Sam and I and Kevin played games together in college. So, and I ran a lot of games for both of those groups. So there's like a fundamental Rodrigo ness somewhere in their RPG lexicon. So it was a lot easier to get those people together and be like, I'm going to run a very Rodrigo game. And they were like, oh, yeah, I know what this is like. I know what to roll with, what to fight you on, what to like just be like, okay, whatever. Rodrigo's going off. Let's just let him until he like tires out. You know, it's like they already know me. They already know how I like to run things. They already know that I ask for a lot of trust. And in fact, I still do it. I would still be like, okay, we're doing this game. I need you guys to trust me. Like there are going to be times when it seems like your characters, when you don't have a lot of control, or when your characters like are kind of being like pulled away from you, and like I'm taking control of them. Please trust me because it's going to lead to something fun or something interesting, right? And those guys know to do that. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Captions. Let's see. Um, okay, Harvester got himself banned. Uh, Lagna says Genesis is the FFG system used in Star Wars and those RPGs. Okay. Yep. Harvester says avoid Saga where you play in the same world but refuse to acknowledge any character or events from the original campaign. Yeah. Lagna says Star Wars RPG books are coming back into print now after Asmodee shuffled things around and moved it from FFG to Edge Studio. Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's good. That's great. A lot of people like those. A lot of people like that version of the Star Wars RPG. I haven't really gotten a chance to play it to any to like any sort of like satisfying degree. Um, but it looks fun. Uh, yeah, Harvester says 4E's breakneck book publishing pace made the online tools more than necessary over time. I mean, I get that, yeah. Lagnus says right now Star Wars RPG books are $250 on eBay. No PDFs makes it hard to get the system, and that sucks. Balui says I have most of those books. Didn't realize they were so expensive now. Well, there you go. If you're actually looking to cash in, Balui, now's the time to do it before they start reprinting them. Alagna says, I've heard a few publishers say that, like a core rulebook outsells adventures and setting books to 10 to 1. So we get new editions. Yeah, absolutely. And the reason why we don't just constantly just get new editions is because there's that contract with the player of like, we're starting a new edition. So we're going to do lots of books. We're going to do adventures. We're going to do splat books. We're going to do individual books. That stuff. Uh, Richie says you might have accidentally moused over your captions. They're stuck. Yeah. I don't know what was going on. It did that a couple times. Harvester says I've enjoyed gaining some system mastery with 5e, and I do enjoy that it is more approachable than it was for 4e in and of itself. And I think some users get very frustrated with the reduced depth of mechanical complexity. Some turn to homebrew and system hacking, and others jump ship to other more crunchy game systems. I wish more people would just jump ship to more crunchy systems. Like the, I just like. Oh, see, it's doing it again. Why is it doing it? What are you doing that captions? Have you been on for too long? Let me turn off the captions just for a second, because maybe we've been on for so long that they're getting confused. Shouldn't be. Let me move this over here. Open up this guy. Check, check, chickadee, check, check, check. All right. We'll try that. I guess we don't need to close that. That's fine. Let's see. What was I talking about? Yeah, it's just like anytime people are like, hey, I'm doing this like superhero game in 5th edition. I'm just like, or yeah, they're like, oh, I'm doing like a Shadowrun thing in 5th edition. I'm like, there are other cyberpunk games besides Shadowrun. If Shadowrun is something you don't like, why is it doing that now? It's like not the right size. These captions have always been such a problem. I'm just trying to be a good person and have like, let me see. If I shrink this, how's that? Nope. 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 That shrunk it too much. Now it's mad at me. Check, check, check. All right. The captions may continue to fritz out. Sorry about that, guys. Harvester says, actually, there's a third group that stay in 5e, but whinge and moan about how it's a baby game for babies. Yeah, sure. Harvester says, Rodrigo has successfully planted Rodrigo.exe. That's why you got banned in many players. Yeah, sorry, Harvestry. But also, thank you guys for stress testing my captions and the filter on the chat. I appreciate that. Hard says, "Oop, .exe counts as a link." Yep, still learning. Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the thing. Is like I've been talking about a lot about influences lately, and it's like, yeah, you influence other people Like when you're a creator, and especially in something that's actually as personal as running an RPG for someone else, it's like you kind of influence that person for in one direction or another, right? If you do something that they don't like, you can be like, I don't like that. I'm never gonna do that in my games. That's an influence, you know. Balui says, also liking the Sentinels role-playing system for what it does and not many superhero RPG systems that I actually like. Yeah, Sentinels is fine. Sentinels is like perfectly fine. I had a good time playing it. I think they probably need to tweak their like encounter system, assuming that Brian was running the encounters properly, because man, did we just get wiped out. But I've heard from other people that like you can actually make like unstoppable juggernauts in not necessarily the juggernaut, but unstoppable characters in those games in Sentinels. So we must have just built our characters in like just not the best possible way. We need to like figure out the system so we can actually like play it a little bit more. Uh, refreshing. Yeah. Oh, you know what? Let me refresh the big window because that's probably part of the problem. Refresheroo. Check, check, check. Oh, hang on. Uh, uh. Check, check, check. Did it work? Well, we'll see if it works or not. Looks fine so far. Thanks for the tip, Rob. That was good. Lagnus says, I always try to promote the less well-known systems. Anything not a WotC system, they have enough market and PR. As yeah, totally. I do that as well. I feel like I live in sort of those like lower middle indies, right? Where it's like, I love Lancer. I talk about Exalted a lot, but I don't promote it very much because like Onyx Path is kind of all over the place. They don't. There's some like scandals that have rolled out of Onyx Path, and I don't love that. Um, but yeah, Fate, right? Is like Evil Hat is like an established game company, um, and then there's like just thousands and thousands of like indies like created by like individuals all over the place that I very rarely end up interacting with. I did play a game of Anyone Can Wear the Mask, um, and it's a podcast. I did it for like Moon Harbor. I don't know if you guys have heard any like Moon Harbor stuff, Moon Harbor Adventures. Um, but yeah, it was actually a lot of fun, and again, like a very personal experience. Playing with like two, like basically the guy who invited me and this other person that got invited, and it was like a very personal experience to sort of craft this story with these two other dudes, um, or two other people. Actually, don't remember if either of them is like non-binary. I guess I should have double checked that, but yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it's something that I would probably want to run, but uh, it's weird. It's a weird game to run because it has a different structure than D&D and D and Exalted and all those games where you're like playing a single character and all the players are single characters and blah 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 blah. Right? It's like role-playing games have a huge ability, like can just expand endlessly out of that and do other things and be just as satisfying or more satisfying. But it's rare for games like that to catch on really in a big way, right? The closest thing is like Powered by the Apocalypse stuff, which has a different engine to spin it. But still, I feel like a lot of people still run them like D&D, even though it doesn't want to be run like D&D. Um, let's see. Lagnus says, I always try to. Yeah. Harvester says, Rodrigo, why can't you just be normal? Captions, why can't Cancun just be moral? Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's just like that I talk too fast or like maybe I slur. I don't think I slur my speech too much. And I'm like, is it my accent? Is it like, what happens if I say juice? Okay. Like that's actually like when I was when I was in high school, I realized that Americans put this like z sound at the end of things that end with S. So if you're like, oh, this freeway has multiple lanes, it's like it's not lanes, it's lanes. And I didn't realize that for the first like 10 years that I lived in the United States. And when I finally figured it out, I was like, what? And that's the thing is like being from a different country, I couldn't hear it, right? It's like it's literally a sound that was being made at me, and my brain just didn't process it as such. So I always do, I used to have this joke, which is probably not a great joke anymore. It's kind of, no, I don't think it's racist, but it's like there's a I learned that there's a difference in pronunciation between the stuff that you squeeze out of an orange and the chosen people of Yahweh, right? It's like there's a pronunciation difference between Jews and juice, which, hey, the captioner caught. So I don't know. Maybe it's not that. Um, let's see. Horsepawn Mind says, I really wish more people knew that there were crunchy indie games. Yeah, definitely. I feel like for a long time I thought moving to indie meant exclusively doing story games. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is like people don't know what's out there because D&D and to a lesser extent Shadowrun, Vampire the Masquerade, the bigger games obscure it, right? You either think everything's going to be like this but different, or everything's going to be like the opposite of this, and actually there's like it's like an absolute spectrum, right? The problem is that you have to then search it out. There are websites that are good resources. There are influencers that are good resources for that stuff. But you have to go out and find those guys because RPGs are not something that is like enjoyed generally by the mainstream. The way that you're like, I like certain movies. You can go to lots of websites, and it's easy to find websites that care about horror movies, websites that hate about like movies that have Frank Sinatra in them. Like there's lots of stuff like that. RPG stuff is like harder to find. You have to do like a lot more digging. Um, Blue says, I'm glad to play 5e and also many indie systems because one system doesn't fit all. Yeah, absolutely. Lagna says, Brian ran a tough game. I have about 30 sessions in now, and we play it a bit more like a comic book, and our GM has figured out our power level. That's good. Yeah, that's another thing is we didn't play it for very long, so I think Brian is like, okay, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to, and then ran it and just like smashed us into the ground. Then he's like, okay, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to tone it down a lot, but then I'm going to add this thing to make it more survivable. And it was again just kind of like such a like just a thing where like both sides are exhausted and we're still like throwing punches at each other. So I think with like 2 or 3 or 4 more sessions, like Brian would just have it down, right, and just be able to then start experimenting with in other weird, interesting things that this system might lead you to do. Harvester says, my city has a company, Dames Making Games, that a friend of mine facilitates RPG and game design content within. They're in a 3-session workshop on Ryutama, somewhat crunchy RPG like Miyazaki's Oregon Trail. And at the end, I ran my own one-shot of it. It was fun and a good intro to the game. I have yet to get more literate with the system to make more of my own content, though. That's always a thing, right? It's like that system literacy is like it is a barrier to entry for game masters, and it's something that's always there, right? And until you like hurl yourself over it, um, it's hard to like get into that game. Abalu says, "Yeah, I was surprised how tough Brian ran that game. Yeah, yeah. It's like I died. Like, yeah, my character got taken out after like the first couple of fights. My character went down every fight. Harvester says, I still have yet to run my own game of Mall Kids. Yeah, that might be fun. He says, ignoring that standard, Mall Kids recommends not having a GM. My first game, the facilitator played GM for the 6 of us who signed on. And that was a good point of contact for me to learn new and dramatically different game style. Yeah, sometimes GM-less games still helps to have somebody who like knows it and basically sort of work as a pseudo game master. Um, when I played that like anyone can wear the mask game, you actually it's like a 3-player game. So one player plays the hero, one player plays the villain, and one player plays the city. So we had the more experienced person play the villain because the villain is actually the most kind of the most active person, right? Both the city and the hero react to what the villain do. So we gave him like I kind of push the villain towards them. Oh no, where did I leave my phone? Oh, it's in my pocket. The we kind of I kind of push them to be the villain so that we're like, okay, well, you know what's happening, so we kind of need you to sort of be this like pseudo game master. Alex says, fun captioner fact is usually more accurate with deeper voices. It's better at recognizing male voices than female voices for that reason. It's trained on mostly male voices. I'm not surprised. Actually, yeah, I've seen it. I know that. I don't know if you guys know Pleasantly Twisted. She's another streamer, much more popular. Runs a very good stream. I'm actually a big fan of hers. Um, and yeah, the captioner is always screwing up, and she uses the same. She uses web captioner, and it's like that's probably wise because her voice is just a higher pitch, and it has more trouble training that. You know, we talk about sort of accessibility, and it's like there's this problem in general, right, with like things only being calibrated to like white dudes, right? It's just like that's why video games, even video games that allow you to make your own character, the character on the cover is this like buzz cut white dude. Let me see what's happening here. And it's like if you make a character with darker skin, it's like very difficult to find places where it's lit properly. Like you'll go and you'll do scenes and your character is just like a black void, and it's like I just wanted to have a slightly darker skinned character, but that scene is not lit for a darker skinned character. It's actually really terrible. And this kind of thing happens here too. It's like if you have a higher pitched voice, you're into more problems. All right. Let's go for at least. I'd like to go for at least another half hour ish. So yeah, let's keep talking about stuff. Lagnus says the One Ring second edition had 17,000 backers or something with big numbers. It looks great, but I also know that in the 80s, an RPG only published in Swedish sold over a thousand, 100,000 copies. There's room for growth beyond D&D. Absolutely, 100%. Horsepoint Mind says it doesn't help that sites like Itch and DriveThruRPG are really tough to browse. It can be, yeah. You kind of have to know, like going in, you have to know what you're looking for and know how the sites work. Um, like Itch is helpful, but yeah, it is kind of hard to navigate. Yeah, they both are. Yeah. Horsepoint Mind says, yeah, I ran a long anthology game where we did a new GM-less game each week, and it was helpful to have me sort of guiding everything, even if I was technically not the GM. Yeah, absolutely. First time around, that's helpful. After that, I imagine, because I haven't played a lot of these, letting that go and then definitely having no GM probably creates that, like, back and forth experience that you want out of those games, right? Um, Harvestry says RPG Saturdays. Rodrigo pontificates games is always a blast when it comes together. Yeah, and it's rare because again, usually I would have to be at work in 10 minutes, so I couldn't do a stream like this, right? But yeah, my work sometimes has Saturdays off, and my wife works Saturday mornings, so maybe this can be a sporadic thing. I'm enjoying it. It looks like you guys are having a good time. Um, so yeah, no, I'm down for it. R.L. Ritchie says that's super true. Richie says so much in the medical field is also calibrated for white cismen. Yeah, absolutely. We had a conversation about that not too long ago, where we were talking about like people's names, right? It's like, oh, here we are. This is a medical database for a hospital. First name, last name, please. And it's like, some cultures don't have first and last names, right? So it's like, what do you enter? What do you enter if your culture reverses first name and last name, or like surname? What do you do if your last name is actually multiple words, right? Like, um, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, right? Ocasio-Cortez is her whole last name. Um, so what do you do? It's like it doesn't. What if it doesn't fit? You just have her down as Ocasio? That's wrong. That's not going to show up properly in paperwork, right? So you run into things like that all the time. Um, Harvey just says it would be great and for sure not held to any expectation, but nice for anticipation. Oh yeah, 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 totally. It's good times. Um, Lagna says on the edge of bad behavior here, but I got frustrated by how hard it is to keep up with what is coming out for RPGs. I started a weekly RPG with announcements, releases, pre-orders. I'm sure my mom would listen if I asked her. Sure. Um, but just keep it up. Like I really like I like everybody's here. Everybody who's here is here right now, probably because they know me from Major Spoilers, right? So Major Spoilers gave me that platform, and that has certainly helped here. Um, but Major Spoilers started from zero and through largely through Steven's work, and a lot of work from Matthew and a lot of work from other writers, and also me. Um, like it has grown to a point where it is like a respected news source and stuff. So uh, I would say keep creating your content. Like this channel is not anywhere close to making what is it called affiliate or no, I'm affiliate now. It's like partner, right? It's not anywhere close, but I'm trying to create regular content, and that's just kind of the way you have to do it. Create regular content, try to advertise it where it's possible to advertise it. Just do your thing, and hopefully your gaming newsletter will grow. Um, of course, unless sometimes life conspires to not let you do things right, so you have to be kind to yourself. Part of the reason why I really only stream 1 day a week is because I suffer from a chronic pain condition. I have two jobs, I have Major Spoilers and then my day job. And also I need time off. So once a week is all I can manage right now. I know that if I did it more and probably if I changed the times that I was doing it, I would probably be doing a lot better. Or the growth would be faster. But right now I can't do that, right? So I'm just focusing on creator, sort of like a backlog of content, so that when it does start to crack through, people will have something to see and to compare to. So we'll see how it goes. Um, R.L. Reach says I read this great book called Invisible Women, which is just like hours and hours of statistics on how our entire world was designed for men to the point where it can be harmful and even deadly. Yeah, absolutely. Our world is designed for like people that are like 5'10", 5'11", or taller. So it's like people that are shorter than that have problems. It's like people that are very short are not as safe while driving. It's like airbags are calibrated for people of a certain height, so it's like it can actually be dangerous for people that are very short. So yeah, it's like anything that varies away from that like white cis like probably like 40-year-old man um, starts to get dangerous. Um, Lagna says if you go to drive through RPG, you'll see what is already selling best usually. Yeah, that's true. Uh, Alex says for a book recommendation. Oh, Horsepawn Mine with the subscription. Thank you. Thank you so much for the subscription. I really appreciate you guys subscribing. It really does mean a lot to me. It's super helpful. Um, it gets Twitch to send me money, and I like that. Um, so yeah, who was I talking to? Oh, Alex. For a book recommendation on our wellness information living out BIPOC and LGBTQ, I recommend Decolonizing Wellness by Dahlia Kinsley. Now, there you go. There you go, kids. Some culture for you guys. Finally. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to like foster this like very cultured following, and it's mostly all of these hooligans from Europe just like talking about scones and fish and chips and stuff. I'm just kidding. I love you guys from Europe. I really do. It's actually been a lot of fun playing Pokemon Shield with people that are actually European. Um, but no, obviously I'm kidding. I love you guys. You guys are great. Um, Let's see. Lagna says I only watch streams where I can talk about RPGs. Well, that's great. I guess this fits. So good for us. Harvester says, for what it's worth, I have heard itch is an excellent platform for use and navigation from a creator standpoint. As a consumer, though, yeah, it's not very user friendly. I mean, a lot of the time, I only go on itch when there's a bundle, and then I get like 1,000 games. And then I just browse my own collection to see what's around. So that's probably not a great way to do it either. Yeah, once again, Horsepawn Mine, really appreciate the sub. Uh, Horsepawn Mine says, yes, can confirm I publish on itch, and it's great as a creator. They make it really easy to do community bundles too, which I was talking about, which can be great for both charity and for making money as a creator. That's great. That's great to hear. Um, yeah, I've been I've kind of switched up to anything I can get through itch. I get through itch rather than drive through RPG because, as I understand it, the pay cut or like the cut that the creator gets is either better or like more negotiable. So that was my understanding, but you guys can correct me if that's not right. Um, Lagna says, ah, yes, famous Swedish scones. We make them with ABBA music and pickled herring. Yes. All through the Iberian Peninsula. Thank you, Lagnus. There's a. So I don't know if you guys watch Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. It's a great show. I really like it. But they introduce a character for one episode named Eurotrish, and she's an imaginary friend, and she's going like all the characters are taking a trip to Europe to see her family, and Eurotrish is like this like ridiculous hodgepodge of like every European like trope and like stereotype or whatever. She's like um, she's like, "Oh yes, I'm so happy to go see a mia familia," and like she just like switches accents on the fly. She has like a giant Union Jack like belt or whatever. That's kind of how I imagine all of you guys from Europe. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, Lagnus, of course, a staple of the chat. I really do appreciate you, Lagnus. A lot of the time, especially earlier, I feel like it was just Lagnus and me hanging out. So yes, I do. I do appreciate that you're not British, and have a different culture. I'm just making broad generalizations about Europe as always because I've never been there, um, but maybe one of these days. Saint JW says, Horseman Line says, Lo, that's what I do too. That anthology game I talked about was entirely games from the Racial Justice Bundle. Yeah, definitely. I think I got that one too. I think that's where I got. That's where I got like Blades in the Dark, which I still haven't read. Saint JW says scones are called biscuits in the U.S. I think, and you have them with gravy. Yes, that's exactly right. Um, scones are in the U.S. Scones are called grits, and we serve them with marmalade. But Louis says I like that show. Yeah, Foster's is a great show. Really, one of my favorites. Um, uh, I actually bonded with my sister-in-law because she liked the show as well, and her dog, who has now passed on, R.I.P. Blue. Her dog was actually named Blue because of that show, and actually his full name was Beauregard Q Kazoo, which is Blue's full name in the in the show. So yeah, I really appreciated that. I like a deep cut, so it's like this lady that was with my brother like talks about that, and I'm like, all right, you're okay. Um, Horsepawn Mind says, I'm pretty sure itch lets you decide what percentage you give them. I just leave it at the base because I'm all right with them paying their bills too. Yeah, totally. Harvester says, I did hear that itch is complicated when it comes to submitting collaborative work. Okay. Harvester says, add quote, I do appreciate that you're not British. I feel like that's out of context, Harvestry, but okay. I'll accept it. Oh, man. It's going to be tough. It's a going to be tough one. All right. Well, we are kind of already in this mode, but let's start thinking about wrapping the stream. I really appreciate you guys just showing up for work on a Saturday, and by work I mean doing whatever you're doing while I'm playing in the background. I appreciate that. Um, I'm glad that you guys are having a good time. I'm glad that you guys are like talking to each other because that's good. It's like as a creator, you want that. You want to be able to have your community actually interact as a community. Um, if you if you want a Discord, nope, that's wrong. You can go to the Major Spoilers Discord, which is where a lot of these guys hang out already anyway. I don't have my own Discord because I can't maintain it, right? It's like I'm big on sort of like user safety, is why I a lot of time why I won't raid channels that I'm not familiar with, and why my my profanity filter is like so aggressive. So I don't feel like I can start my own Discord and monitor the people that are there to the degree that I'd want. But the Major Spoilers Discord is the only Discord that I go to where I actually like interact with people. Um, and yeah, so you can usually find me there. Um, what is my name? If you get into the Major Spoilers Discord, look for It's Rodrigo, and you can like if you go on a chat and you like say hey at It's Rodrigo or whatever to like talk to me directly because there are places where I don't go, so it's like that just says like yeah, if you want to say something about something to me specifically, just tag me and I'll show up to talk about it. It's like you can summon me that way. Let's see. Horsepoint Mine says Harvestry. I don't think putting together an itch bundle is all that difficult, but I've never been the one on the management side of it. I know for non-charity bundles, you can't change how much each user gets, so it makes it hard to do fundraisers for one specific user, for example. All the non-charity bundles I've been in have been 25 or 50 people to make the math easy. That makes sense. Harvester says I'm fully cool if you want to slash it. No, it's fine. It's fine. Pleasure as always. Thank you. I appreciate that. Horsepoint Mine says come to the Major Spoilers Discord and talk about how cool the golden kind are with me. We do talk about the golden kind. Those guys are impactful. Lagna says I blabbed about RPGs in the Major Spoilers Discord too all the time. Harvester says, okay, interesting. I have heard more about submitting individual works that involve other creators. Okay. It's Rodrigo. Cheese it. Yeah. No, you like I do like I had this thing for a while where like anytime somebody like tagged me, I would show up and I would be like, who dares? Um, but I think that was like a little scary for newer people, so I stopped doing it. But that's pretty much how I am most of the time. So yes, thank you guys. Thank you so much. Let's try and do this on Wednesday afternoon Pacific time, so 2 p.m. Pacific. Um, that might be moving a little bit, like maybe a little bit earlier, but not yet. So yeah, if around 2 p.m. you guys can. Yes, thank you. Um, we are in fact not torturing dogs here. So yeah, thanks guys. I will see you soon. Have a good day or night or whatever it is on your hemisphere. Good times, good times. Where's my ending stream? Here we go.